Yo, 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 yo. Yo, 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 yo. All right. All right. What's up, guys? Today we're just going over all the ascendancy changes, the patch notes, for the upcoming Ritual League in the 3.13 update. Yeah. So we're just gonna go over that today. Nothing crazy for the stream. Pretty chill, laid back. There's nothing crazy we got planned today. And then Friday, what we will be doing is we will be planning our build before the league starts, and then we'll be hopping right in. We have a private league set up for me and some of my buddies, and we'll be doing that. So hopefully we can think of some good ideas going through these patch notes. I know there's been multiple people that have gone through the patch notes already, but hey, everybody's got to do it. That way we can learn what's coming up. So we'll start with the ascendancy classes. All the changes, there's a lot of them. I briefly looked over them, but we're going to go into them into a little bit more detail, see what's coming up. So starting up, it looks like we have the Slayer. So this is from the Duelist class. Maybe down at the bottom and stuff like that. Typically, this hasn't been the number one choice lately. A lot of it has been Champion, because Impale was insanely broken. There has been some changes to Impale this league, make it a little less broken, because it pretty much clears all content with ease and with very little risk as well. So starting up, so Brutal Fervor, it says here they added 100% increased recovery per life leech, 10% reduced damage taken while leeching, and they remove 15% increased attack speed while leeching, 50% increased attack damage while leeching, and 6% reduced damage taken while leeching. So basically here it looks like they increased how much you get for life leech. So that's pretty decent, and they increased the reduced damage taken. So they increased your survivability while decreasing your damage on this. So, but I mean, the 50% increased attack to damage. If it was more attack damage, it would be pretty significant, but 50% increased isn't like detrimental as far as attack damage. And there's plenty of ways to make up for that. It's not that big of a deal, I don't think. So brutal fervor. What's the rest of the node? And then it's just life leech effects are not removed at full life. So if you're going a slayer, this is generally why you're going slayer. So it basically they're increasing the uh survivability of it while decreasing the damage. And then we can look up here, Endless Hunger. So what they change on Endless Hunger? They straight up added increased attack speed while leeching, and it's 20%. So they took this mod here, this 15% increased attack speed while leeching, and they moved it to Endless Hunger and buffed it. So that's really good. They didn't add the damage, but that 5% increased attack speed is, I mean, it's a decent amount. That means you have to invest in it less elsewhere, so that's not too bad. And because this has 20% overkill damage is leech, and this is also like, this is a really good node. You're unaffected by bleeding. You have overkill damage as leech's life, which that's big. If you're doing 10,000 damage on a monster that only has 5,000 life, now you have that extra uh stuff going on. Oh yeah, do this. You have that extra that 5k or whatever that is also being leech's life. So overkill being leech's life. This is a pretty good node that's generally taken from my understanding. We go over here, masterful form, +1 to maximum frenzy charges. They added that. They removed the 50% increased endurance charge duration and the 50% increased frenzy charge duration. So what is the rest of this node? Your maximum endurance charge is equal to your maximum frenzy charges. Honestly, the duration thing being removed, that's perfectly fine. Nobody really cared about, like, you don't need your charges to have 30 seconds because chances are they're gonna survive. Like, you're gonna refresh your charges before you even get halfway through that anyway. So this being there is pointless. Having the extra frenzy charges is big. That makes this node a little bit more useful. I don't know if it'll be particularly used consistently, but it makes it a lot better. Overwhelm base critical strike chance for attacks with weapons is 8%, so they basically upped it by 0.5%. So I mean 0.5% is pretty significant. So I mean that ups it. So say you have a weapon that's 5% base crit, you automatically become that extra 3%, which is huge. That's huge actually. And the 0.5% is fairly significant to be upped on that. Overwhelm has extra crit per nearby enemy up to, or crit multi up to 100%. Nearby enemies have 30%, negative 30%, or minus 30%, not negative. But so that's an okay node. I don't think, personally, I don't go this node. Whenever I go Slayer, I don't usually go that node, but hey. Impact, they upped it from 2 melee strike range to 4 +4 melee strike range. That's pretty big. That makes it so you don't have to be directly on top of an item or a monster. So that's fairly big. I don't think it's like crazy significant, and I don't know if anybody really cares about this. It has increased accuracy. Nobody cares about accuracy at this point. It's really easy to get high accuracy. Increased AoE per enemy killed recently up to 50%. That's not bad. Deal up to 15% more melee damage to it. So that's a pretty big node. That's actually a really big node for damage. That 15% more is huge. But I don't know how much people actually use that node either. Headsman, 20% more damage with hits. They added 20% more damage with hits and ailments against unique enemies. And they removed 20% more damage against unique enemies. I think this is probably just a wording clarification. I don't think there's really any change to that. That doesn't look like it changed that much. Attack damage, life leech. 0.4% of attack damage leaches life instead of 0.2%. And these are the smaller nodes, right? So, yeah, these are these smaller nodes here. I don't honestly having that leech. I guess it could keep you from having to go. If you have to go, oops, I don't want that. If you have to go from, because a lot of people generally get this life from mana leech node, but it has mana. This node has mana leech, so unless you're gonna just like skip that node and get mana leech elsewhere, I don't know that this is really that significant of a change. 15% increase endurance charge radiation. So you get the duration. They upped the duration on these smaller nodes from this by 5% after reducing the big node from having the 50%. Again, you generally get a duration node anyways when you get the charges, so I don't think this is that significant. So that's Slayer. There's no, it doesn't seem like there's any like crazy changes on Slayer. Just increasing your survivability a little bit. They lowered the damage a little bit, but there's nothing crazy here. So move down to Gladiator. Gladiator is generally a lot of bleed and block stuff. So yeah, we'll check this out here. So Painforged, they straight up removed 40% damage if you've taken no damage from hits recently. So they straight up nerfed that node. Where is it? It's this one. Painforged. 8% chance to block attack damage if you were damaged by a hit recently. Your counterattacks deal double damage, cannot be stunned by hits you block. So I'm pretty sure this is a pretty common node. A lot of times people go Gladiator to be able to get more block in, stuff like that. Them reducing the damage is kind of annoying because I don't think Gladiator was particularly strong on the damage side anyways. So them reducing the damage is slightly annoying on that. Then we'll move over Blood and Eyes. Attacks have 50% chance to cause bleeding, 25% chance to blind with hits against bleeding enemies. They added this and they reduced attacks, removed attacks have 25% chance to cause bleeding, 10% chance to cause. So they straight up buffed this node. That's pretty significant. That means this being buffed by 25% means that you don't have to invest in the chance for bleeding elsewhere. So that's pretty significant. And then you get the 25% chance to blind with hits. Generally speaking, your threshold is going to be like 25% on things like this to be consistent. So like 10% usually isn't consistent, whereas if you're at the 25% now, it's going to be a lot more consistent on blinding, which is big because if you're blinding, that means that it's hard for them to hit you. It's something like, I want to say it's like 30% difference. Blind PoE. The affected target by, wow. That lessens the chance to hit of the affected target by 50% and lowers the light radius to the minimum value. So 50%. That's pretty significant. He has 50% less chance to hit on that. That's huge. Gratuitous violence. They added 20% more damage with bleeding. They removed attacks have 25% chance to cause bleeding, 30% increased damage with hits and ailments against bleeding enemies, and 25% more damage with bleeding. So they straight up nerfed this node. They moved this 25% over to Blood and Eyes, which you get beforehand anyways. So that them removing this isn't a big deal. Then they removed this 30% increased damage with hits and ailments against bleeding enemies. And then they reduced the more damage with bleeding. The thing that bothers me about this is the fact that like bleed builds have never been like overly OP anyways. They basically just hard nerf the bleed build through gladiator. Like if you wanted to go gladiator, you're just nerfed for no reason. Nobody's going like the top builds aren't generally bleeding, so I don't think this nerf makes no sense to me, honestly. And then these small nodes, they added plus 2% chance to block attack damage. They basically just cleaned this up instead of having dual wielding or holding a shield. And they made it more like you can use it with more builds. So if for some reason you're doing a spellcaster with gladiator, which is a terrible idea by the way, you could do this and you could have these nodes and still get the benefit instead of having to hold a shield or dual wield. Well, no, while dual wielding or holding a shield. So it basically only helps two-handed stuff. So you get the extra block chance while two-handed weapons. So, I mean, that's pretty much Gladiator. There's nothing really... The only thing that bothers me, they basically hard nerfed Gladiator, and I don't really know why. Gladiator was never OP. Hasn't been OP for a while. It was OP with the whole max block thing, but like I don't think it's really OP anymore. And they just nerfed bleeding for no reason. So we'll drop down to the champion here. So inspirational. They added 30% increased effect of non-curse auras from your skills. Removed 15% increased effect of non-curse auras from your skills, you and nearby allies. So basically, what they're doing with this is they're just nerfing. Well, one, you don't get the move speed from having an aura, basically. Or this node. You don't get the move speed from this node, which is kind of annoying. It slows down the build. It's going to make this build slower than other things, which I guess is kind of partly what they want to do because a lot of the Call of Steel builds, and if you're doing Impale, you're going champion. So this is basically they're slowing down this build because they think that Impale builds are just OP, which they are. They're actually broken. And then they increased the effect of your aura skills, which is big. So instead of 15%, they doubled it to 30%. That's fairly significant. So you can still get this like increased movement speed. Say you're running haste for some reason. Wouldn't be too off. This isn't too bad of a change. Master of Metal impales you inflict last one additional hit instead of two, and then they remove 20% chance to impale enemies on hit with attacks. So this is to be expected. Impale is broken. So by removing this one impale, you're probably reducing your damage by at least 10 to 20%, I would say. Like that's pretty significant change there, and they did this because Impale is so broken. And honestly, I'm surprised it's taken this long to do this anyways. Unstoppable Hero, they added 20% increased attack speed while you have Fortify, plus 500 to armor and evasion while you have Fortify. Whereas they removed the 10% increased attack speed, and they removed 1,000 armor while you have Fortify. And they removed 30% increased attack damage while you have Fortify. Which this is pretty significant. They reduce the damage. A lot of times you'll go Fortify because Fortify is really strong. As you can see here, Fortify grants 20% less damage taken from hits. That's a lot of reduced damage. 20% less damage is massive. And they reduce your armor and evasion rating, which is pretty significant actually because armor is actually pretty decent now. I don't know exactly how the armor stuff works. I haven't looked into it since they've changed it. But from my understanding, armor is actually pretty good right now. So they basically reduce the defenses on this, and then they increase your attack speed, which that's pretty big. Instead of just straight up increasing attack damage, they increase your attack speed. So That's pretty good. They just straight up reduced defenses here, and like because you could go doing the evasion rating thing, you could go get that node, and then you can get iron reflexes, and now you have 2,000 armor instead of 1,000, and now you're stacking like your percent nodes and all your other stuff onto it. Plus, if you have flasks that add percent, like this flask that add up to 100% increased armor and evasion rating, that's massive. So you could potentially like reduce your or add a lot of armor off this extra 500. So that's pretty significant change. Conqueror, 10% reduced damage taken if you've taunted an enemy recently. Enemies taunted by you deal 20% less damage with hits and ailments against other targets. So basically, if you're in a group, it'll deal 20% less damage to other targets instead of this 10%. That's a fairly significant change. So that makes this node more valuable in team play. Like you taunt the enemies, now your teammates take 20% less damage. Plus, if they have fortify, then they're taking a lot less damage. No, like a lot less. And then they buffed the reduced damage, but they removed the regenerates 2% life per second. I mean, that's a fairly significant thing to remove, but they buffed all the defenses to begin with, so like you're taking for another 4% reduced damage taken. So I don't know that this is like super significant. Generally, I don't think you're going like if you're on Jug and they remove this might be huge actually, but I don't think it's crazy. And then now they add these small nodes. They changed from increased attack damage to having an extra 5% increased fortify on you. So that's pretty significant because that 5% will buff your attack speed. Where is it? Where's the fortify? Or no, increased effective fortify. So that 5% will, instead of 20% less damage, now you're taking 24% less damage. Right? So that's pretty significant in my opinion. And then 10% chance, they added 10% chance to impale enemies on hit with attacks, and they removed the increased impale effect. That's pretty significant. So instead of having the 20% here, they put it on the small nodes, and they removed the increased impale effect. So having the removed increased impale effect, again, they're just trying to hard nerf impale. Impale's been broken for a while. We'll move on to the assassin here. So, Noxious Strike. They put 30% to damage over time multiplier for poison. Instead of having 25% damage over time multiplier for poison plus 50% increased damage with poison. Honestly, this is just cleaning things up. It seems kind of redundant to have this and this when they could just have this. My guess is that 5% is going to make up that 50% increase. Because this damage over time multiplier is a more multiplier, right? So this is just cleaning things up. Opportunistic, 20% reduced damage taken while there are at least 2 rare or unique enemies nearby. Instead of 20% increased movement speed if you've killed recently. So basically they buffed your defenses in a while mapping, because typically you're not going to have, most times you're not going to have 2 rare or unique enemies nearby, unless you're like in the middle of a map, stuff like that. So you did buff your defenses here, and they removed your movement speed. So basically, again, they're just slowing down things, which they have talked about how they want to just kind of slow some of the game down, and like Path of Exile 2 is supposed to do that a lot. So this isn't like too significant. I mean, to me, it's not significant. To some people, it will be. Toxic Delivery. plus 0.5% to crit strike chance per poison affecting enemy, up to 2%. And then they removed reduced damage taken from damage over time. That's pretty significant. I don't think that damage over time is a big issue usually. I know there are instances where there's bosses that if they hit you, there's a big ignite, stuff like that. Or there might be a big poison that this can be. So this might hurt bossing a little bit. And then they changed this from 0.4 to 0.5. Basically, just make it so you can get that 2% a little bit easier. You get it one hit easier instead of having to do that fifth hit. You just do 4. And then gain 20% of fizz damage as extra chaos damage against poison enemies. That's a massive nerf. They reduced the damage on that by a lot. I mean, because if you're a fizz build, if you're a poison build, it's based off of you're stacking fizz anyways, and you might convert to chaos, or you just have chance to poison, right? And it goes off your fizz damage, because fizz damage can cause poison or bleeding depending on how you build your build. So this is pretty significant. That's 20% more damage just like removed. And I don't think this will affect mapping that much, but that's massive against bossing. And then Mistwalker, they added gain elusive at critical strike and then 50% increase elusive effect. So let's look at elusive real quick, just to get an idea of what elusive does. So elusive is a buff which grants attack and spell dodge and movement speed. It grants a large amount of dodge chance and movement speed when it's first applied, and effects of it decays over time. So elusive grants 15% chance to dodge attacks and dodge spells and 30% increased move speed. So you gain elusive on crit no matter what, and then you get 50% increased elusive effect. So instead of 15%, you're now doing 22.5%, which that's pretty fucking significant. That's actually massive. And it decays, and you don't reset your elusive until your elusive completely decays, I believe. So they changed it from 50% chance to gain elusive on crit. They just made it more consistent to have elusive. They removed the increased attack and cast speed. And they removed the reduced damage taken while elusive. But they buffed the increased elusive effect. I mean, they I kind of wish they would keep the reduced damage. They basically reduced. Well, no, actually, I understand why they did this now, because you're buffing it by an extra 25% increase. So the idea is that you basically get hit less instead of needing this reduced damage. There's probably some calculations you can do on this on being able to figure out exactly how much on average reduced damage you would have, quote unquote. But and then increase attack speed, basically because they made this more consistent, they didn't want to have this increased attack speed in there constantly, so that's fine. Deadly Infusion, they straight up removed increased movement speed while at max power charges. So again, try and slow the game down. Small nodes, increase power charge duration, whatever, increase damage over time. They're nerfing damage over time. Increase elusive effect. Oh, okay. So they changed it from move speed to increase elusive effect. So basically, this small node here is actually significantly better, because that 10%, you're getting move speed. If you do 10%, it should increase it by 3% in theory. I'm not exactly sure on the calcs, but if you're doing that, so you lose 1% increased movement speed, but you get extra dodge out of it. So that's pretty good. And then power charge duration, whatever. Nobody cares about that. Saboteur. Let's see what they changed here. So, Born in the Shadows. Now, instead of having a 25% chance to blind enemies on hit, you just straight up blind. And they removed this because you're consistently going to be blinding. The only thing that bothers me with this is that, I mean, I guess this is fine because a lot of, obviously, Saboteur is known for running traps or mines. So yeah, you're consistently blinding enemies. So they buffed the defenses here while nerfing the damage. Traps and mines have actually been really strong overall. Like for a while now. Traps have consistently been good. Explosive experts increased crit multi against burning enemies. They removed increased AoE, 8% reduced area damage taken from hits, and 30% crit multi against burning enemies. So basically, they buffed the crit multi while reducing the area damage taken from hits and the AoE. Honestly, I don't think most of the optimal traps care about the AoE anyways. So this in general is pretty whatever. Like the only time it would matter is if you're doing something like, I don't know. I don't even know. Like what would you, I can't even think of a good trap. Maybe Ice Nova if you're doing something like Ice Nova, but again, you're not optimizing your traps anyways, so there, this to me isn't that significant. And then the reduced area damage taken from hits. I mean, I don't know how much area damage you take anyways. A lot of times the area damage will have effects that make it easy to dodge and stuff like that. So I don't think this is that significant. Whatever. Pyromaniac. They added regen 2% of life per second for each mine detonate up to 10%. They basically buffed this from 1% to 2%, basically making it easier to get to that max. So instead of having to detonate 10 traps or mines, you now only have to detonate 5. So that's not too bad. And then they removed the reduced mana cost of skills that throw traps and reduced mana reservation of skills that throw mines. The one thing that I know about this is if you look, where is it? Here. So the very next one, Perfect Crime. You gain 10% increased damage for each trap, 25% chance to traps trigger an additional time, and 25% reduced mana cost of skills that throw traps. So they basically buffed the reduced mana reservation and just moved it to Perfect Crime. So if you're getting, and Perfect Crime is before, instead of having it on Pyromaniac, they put it on Perfect Crime. I mean, this is fine. I think this is fine. Because this makes it so that you can, you don't have to, you can optimize this and use this for different builds instead of being forced into Pyromaniac because you want need the reduced mana cost, right? So I think this is good. This is a good change overall. Other than that, they just made this more consistent. They basically buffed it, kind of. They removed increased cooldown recovery rate for throwing traps. This isn't very significant. Them removing this is whatever. I mean, cooldown recovery rate. It's not trap throwing speed. It's cooldown recovery rate for, well, it's just for throwing traps. Ooh, so maybe this means that. Ooh, I wonder if this means that traps. Interesting. And they basically buffed this 8% to 10% for each trap, so that's pretty significant. And then 20% chance for traps to trigger additional time. I mean, that's a nerf in the fact that, because getting that extra trap off is actually big. Like, for them to trigger an additional time is pretty significant. Especially for bossing, that's pretty significant damage reduction. Chain reaction. 50% increased cooldown recovery for throwing traps. Skills used by traps have 50% increased AoE. So they removed this, but they added 50% here, which that's pretty significant. It was 15%, so I buffed it by 35%. So they basically just moved that to there, so that's fine. Skills used by traps have 50% increased AoE. Again, I don't know how significant this really is. I don't think most use much AoE. I mean, I guess like if you did lightning trap or lightning ball lightning trap, but most people I think do ball lightning mine. But if you did ball lightning trap, honestly, you're just better off doing ball lightning mine anyways, because for you to use ball lightning trap, you have to use the trap gem, and then it's like I don't know. You're just not. This just doesn't make sense for ball lightning. But a lot of traps are like arc traps. You have pyro blast mine. I guess you have the pyro like ice trap and stuff like that. Like the base traps, the ones that are already a specific skill. You have those, but I don't know. Skills used by traps have 20% increased AoE. They removed that, made it 50%. So that's big, I guess. 150% increased effective auras from mines. That's pretty significant. They buffed it by 50%. And then bomb specialist, you gain 5% increased AoE for each mine, up from 4%. 25% increased mine throwing speed if you detonate mines recently, upped by 5%. And then mines have 20% increased detonation speed. So again, up 5%, and then they removed the 40% increased damage if you detonated mines recently. Physical blade blast assassin as league start, good or no? So the one thing that I would say, Mac and Dark, is that crit builds often can be difficult for league start in general, and assassin is generally a crit build. But and they kind of nerfed the defenses a little bit on assassin too. It doesn't look like they nerfed anything significant for like damage wise and stuff like that. They made your crit more consistent if you're doing poison. I have to look again how blade blast works. So it also depends, right? Because blade blast goes off of different skills, doesn't it? Yeah, they did a lot of reducing move speed on it. It's they removed move speed. They basically they big time increased defenses. Actually, they buffed elusive by a lot. So you're basically always getting elusive on crit, and they buffed it by instead of only 25% increased, you get 50%, and they changed this small node from having move speed to having an increased elusive effect. So they buffed defenses pretty significantly on assassin. Deal spell damage to target area when the spell does damage if you're linking blades or blade vortex. Oh, I know. Actually, now that you mention this, they buffed blade blast too. So if you're doing it with blade vortex, you have more AOE, so you're gonna have more clear speed, on blade blast as well. So that can be pretty significant if you use it. If you use it with blade vortex. If you use it with other things, I would say it's not terrible. It's just a matter of doing crit on league start is often difficult because crit can be expensive, and expensive builds are obviously not optimal for league start, right? A lot of your league starters are going to be like low investment things, so things like minions or like jug, and basically anything jug or uh like if you do earthquake or stuff like that, stuff that takes low investment that still does good damage. Blade fall and blade blast, that might not be too bad for league start, um just because it'll be consistently. I think you have a lot of blades to burst with it, with blade burst or blade blast, but um just keep in mind that you're going to be lacking optimal damage because it'd be crit. Obviously, if you're going assassin, I assume you want to do crit, unless you're doing poison, and then that can actually be really good. If you're doing a poison uh blade blast blade fall build, that can be really strong for league start, because poison I don't think takes a lot of crazy investment. Yeah, I couldn't get into Scourge Arrow. I've never actually played it, but it just seems slow, like really slow to me. So done I haven't done Scourge Arrow. I haven't ever league started a bow build. I've done bow builds. My very first character actually was a bow character, but that was I've played since open beta, so that was a long time ago. Um, what else have I done? I've played Ellie Hit a couple times, but I don't ever league start it. I think, like, generally speaking, spellcasters are definitely the best league starters. Spellcasters or like Jug. Um, there's a couple melee builds that are good for league start just because they're low investment and you can clear the game still. Oh, that's a good question. I actually do not have any idea. I've never played Blade Blast. My guess would be that you level. So if you're gonna do, my guess would be if you're gonna do poison, you would probably level as Toxic Rain. That would probably be my guess. If you're gonna do BV, you can actually just play BV. One of my buddies plays BV all the time. It feels kind of bad until you get a little bit of duration on it. But if you go BV, you can just a lot of times you can play BV at the beginning, especially if you get a Val BV. But and I forgot I'm talking out my ass because you're not doing BV. We already but if you're doing crit instead of poison, that's a good question actually. I'm curious about that. If you're doing crit, you might. Let's see, because you'd probably go down this path. You'd take these. Trying to think of the best. So, Shadow. Shadows Beauty. Let me see something here. Quest rewards. I don't care about this. Mainly I'm thinking what skills to level with and stuff. Yeah. Um you could so what you could do that can be potentially really strong, like you'd have to do some respecking later on, but you could run traps for leveling. Traps are always strong for leveling. They've always been, they always will be. Well, I shouldn't say always will be, but they always have been. That wouldn't be bad. Or instead of Blade Fall, if Blade Fall doesn't feel good when you pick it up, Bladefall might just feel good when you pick it up, right? If it doesn't, you could just run BV and run that temporarily until you get to where uh uh Bladefall feels good. If you're doing because if you're doing crit, you'd probably take this path here, right? Attack and cast speed, I would assume, because these are useless nodes. And you'd go there, try to take these nodes. You might be able to level as a EK as well. It's hard to say for me because I don't play a lot of assassin. I don't think I've ever played assassin. Now I think about it, every time I've done a shadow, it's always been saboteur. I've played a lot of saboteur. I've played mines. I've played traps. A lot of different types of traps. I tried a trickster once, but I never finished the build. I've never done assassin. Now that I think about it. Or if you want to, also, if you want to temporarily, you can take Yeah, I'm gonna. I try new things all the time. Usually, because that's one of the things that excites me about the leagues is that I want to try out the new skills and new stuff. So like, but there's a lot of new stuff this league too, with all the ascendancy changes. I plan on starting a Deadeye, and I think I'm gonna go Reeve, but I haven't figured it out yet. I'm gonna do some on Friday. I'm gonna do some build planning and stuff like that, and try and figure out what I want to do before the league starts. And then I want to do there's a battle mage thing. So we'll skip ahead a second here. So there is battle mage, right? So battle mage is gain added spell damage equal to the damage of your main hand weapon. I want to check that out because that sounds like that can be OP. Like if you get a staff, and you have if you have a high fizz damage roll or whatever, you get like 200 to 400 added fizz damage to your spell. The way I'm reading this, plus you can have added lightning and stuff like that. And I think this can be really strong node. That battle mage, I think that can be really strong for spells. So I do want to try that out, but we'll find out. I'll do some looking into it after league start. My league start, I think I want to do Deadeye because they buffed Deadeye a little bit for defenses. But the other thing you can do is if you're willing to respec later on, is you can start Toxic Rain, and you just because I think actually a lot of the nodes are gonna be the same because Toxic Rain. A lot of these builds, a lot of bow builds, and a lot of builds in general will start Toxic Rain and level as Toxic Rain because it's really strong, and it is. So it does have physical damage converted, so it does scale off of the same nodes if you're running Blade Blast. So you can level as Toxic Rain. I bet you that's probably the best way to do it is leveling off Toxic Rain. More than likely, that's probably your best choice is to level off Toxic Rain until you get to a point where you feel comfortable with Blade Blast. Because you'll have to get spell damage nodes and stuff like that probably. I searched I just searched. Well, you can just search quest rewards, right? Quest rewards PoE. Yeah, it's just quest rewards PoE. And this shows you all your quest rewards. So like It's just a Gamepedia that is pretty well organized. It goes down the acts pretty well. You've got vendor quest rewards. It's pretty simplified. So this I don't use this, but like the wiki in general is really good in my opinion compared to like other games. It's pretty well kept up, but it shows you what flask you get from each thing. It shows you where you get your book of skills and your book of regrets and stuff like that. But yeah, if you level up Toxic Rain, I bet you it'll be pretty consistent because you get this node and stuff like that. Like your crit nodes won't be as effective on Toxic Rain because you don't generally play the hit, you play the AoE. But a lot of these nodes will be fairly consistent with what you're doing. But yeah, so we were at Saboteur. But yeah, you can do that for pretty much anything too. Like you just search exactly what you're looking for and type POE at the end of it, and it'll come up with a wiki that's pretty accurate. Like if you're looking for any of the special skills like Transfiguration of Mind or stuff like that, you just Google that real quick. Transfiguration of Mind, POE, and it comes right up. It's usually the top result. So, and then, but yeah, we'll continue on. Yeah, it's really good. We'll continue on here though, and let's see what Trickster's got for us here. So, for Trickster, we have Weave the Arcane, 30% increased max mana, 30% chance to recover 10% of mana when you use a skill. Instead of, they buffed the increased max mana by 5%, and they buffed the chance to recover mana, but they took out the reduced damage taken for 4 seconds after spending a total of 200 mana. So this is, they basically hard nerfed this, but they buffed your mana and your chance to recover mana. So if you go mind over matter, this node is kind of buffed actually. It may be a buff overall, but your 6% like the 6% reduced damage taken is pretty significant, I feel like. So they kind of reduced the consistency of the defenses basically on this. They added 3% reduced damage taken per Ghost Shroud. When hit, lose a Ghost Shroud and recover energy shield equal to 5% of your evasion shield. So instead of chance to evade, you just get 3% reduced damage. Or no, they buffed the reduced damage by 1%, and you have 3% less. They removed the evade. So now, what's your max Ghost Shards? Maximum of 3. It looks like it's a maximum of 3. So now you get 9% instead of 6% reduced damage taken. At 3%, I don't know if that's that significant. I feel like the chance to evade is okay. Yeah, that's pretty standard. Mines and traps are always a good way to level. Um if you don't like the feel of mines, leveling with traps isn't too bad. Like you're like mines does more damage. Mines has always been stronger, but the playstyle, because you have to hit that extra button to detonate your mine, right? So it's a little bit, it can feel a little bit worse if you're not like, if you don't like that type of thing. So traps wouldn't be that big of a deal if you went traps instead of mines to level. Um and then when hit, lose a Ghost Shroud and recover energy equal to 4% of yours. So they Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a good thing to think about. Um, so they reduced it by 1%. You're recovering 1% less energy shield. Basically, it looks like they reduced the overall defenses. They removed movement speed. Again, they just keep trying to slow down the game, so they keep removing these movement speed nodes. Um and they kind of made the consistency of your defenses a little bit higher on this, but I think that my guess is that overall it's probably a little bit or no, it's just minus plus. Never mind. No, they actually buffed this node in general. Because this isn't per Ghost Shroud. This is just while you have Energy Shield. So this node's a lot better. They buffed the defenses on this a little bit while reducing how much you're gaining per Lost Shroud. So I don't think this is too bad. This isn't a too bad of a change. Escape Artist, 5% increase attack cast speed per Ghost Shroud. They nerfed that. And they took the 10% chance to dodge spell hits if you have Energy Shield. They removed that completely. So this node is just completely nerfed. Big time nerfed. Prolonged Pain, they removed the increased poison duration. So they hardcore nerfed that. That's pretty significant to just remove that duration. That means you get less poisons in. You're doing less damage all at once. Yeah. So that's kind of a nerf there. Patient Reaper, recover through they buffed the amount of life on kill and energy shield on kill, but they reduced your damage over time. So they just nerfed your damage, but they increased your survivability a little bit. Here, 27% chance to gain 25% on kill. So basically they buffed it 2% on this. And then they buffed it 2% on the 100%, but they nerfed it 2% on the middle one. Honestly, I have no idea how this changes anything balance-wise. This one, I have no idea. And then small nodes, increased damage instead of increased damage over time. So this just makes this more general node. Don't know that this is really necessary. And then power charge and frenzy charge duration. Nobody cares. The duration doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Like it does, but it doesn't. Kind of a waste. Whatever. So on to Juggernaut, huh? Undeniable. So they reduced the 500 or actually to 500 from 1,000. I don't think this is very significant. Accuracy is really easy to come by at this point. Precision gives a bunch of accuracy, and most builds will use precision if they're going crit, and then if they're not going crit, they're gonna use resolute technique anyways. If they're a jug, so this isn't that significant. 1% increased attack speed per 150 accuracy instead of 200 accuracy. So yes, that's where it comes into play. But like even at that, they buffed it by 50 accuracy rating. So every time, whereas instead of needing 800 for 4, you're needing 600 for 4%. So that's pretty. This is a pretty significant buff, I feel like. Increased accuracy rating if you've dealt a critical strike in the past 8 seconds. I mean, whatever. Gain accuracy rating equal to twice your strength. So this is the thing too. Gain accuracy rating equal to your strength versus gain accuracy rating equal to twice your strength. So a Juggernaut is going to be heavy strength based anyways. So I think this makes it just makes it more consistent and evens it out, honestly. I don't think this is that significant of a change. And the only other changes they did to Jug is the small nodes. They basically this is all endurance charge stuff that it doesn't really matter. And they made it so you get more regen instead of increased stun duration. Whatever. Alright, on to the Berserker. So Pain Reaver, they just straight up buffed. They had 30% increased attack speed instead of 25%. Crave Slaughter, they just straight up added to plus 10 to max rage, which is actually big because instead of, so when you get these other nodes, right, that so rage, inherent effects of having rage, right? You get 1% increased attack damage per 1 rage, 1% increased attack speed per 2 rage, and 1% increased movement speed per 5 rage. But this now increases, you get plus 10 to maximum rage. So now instead of 50, your maximum rage is now 60. So you get 2% extra move speed, which that's not significant, but you get 5% increased attack speed, that's fairly significant, and 10% increased attack damage. So, but you do lose more life, or yeah, per rage while you're not losing rage. So you do lose an extra 1% of life per second with this. So that's something to keep in mind if you ever playing this. Blitz, reduce critical strike chance per blitz charge. Now it's, so they basically buffed this. Instead of 10% reduced crit strike chance per blitz charge, it's 8%. That's pretty good buff there. 30% increased total recovery per second from life leech instead of 10%. So basically, they just full on nerfed or buffed Berserker. They just buffed Berserker completely. I don't think that this is gonna like make it like meta, but it definitely closes the gap a little bit with the nerfs to champion, the nerfs to some of the other things. I think this makes it a little bit closer to even, but I don't think this is gonna be like, oh, we have to run Berserker now or anything like that. Chieftain, we have Arahongai. I can't pronounce that. But yeah, Moon's Presence. They added 20% increased AoE while you have a totem. That's pretty significant. They added 50% of fizz damage from hits taken as fire hits taken as fire damage. And they removed regen 2% of life per second and 10% of fizz damage from hits taken as fire damage. So this is actually a pretty big buff because you're taking an extra 5% of fizz damage, and so you don't need as much fizz damage mitigation now. You got 5, because this is fizz damage mitigation, right? So you're taking 5 extra percent as fire damage, and then you generally will have at least 75% fire res. So now of that 5%, you're taking 75% reduced damage, so you're taking somewhere like 1.5%. It's a little bit less than 1.5% of that 5% damage. So that's a pretty significant buff. But they took the regen away. So, and that's a lot of regen to take away. 2% is pretty big. I mean, 2% of, you figure you're going to have at least 6k life. So 2% of 6k, if you're playing hardcore, you're probably going to be looking for somewhere around 8k life. 2% of that is what? 60, it's 120 life regen per second. That's a pretty significant amount, in my opinion. If you're looking at 8k, you're looking at 160. So. And then Warrior's Herald, 2% of damage dealt from your by your totems leeches life. So if you're running fire totems, if you're running totems with Chieftain, you now have better life leech with totems, and you have better AoE. Increased effect. Oh no, it's not AoE. It's increased effect of buffs granted by your active ancestor totems. So if you're running like a aura totem or something like that, might be significant. Otherwise, I don't know how significant. I've never run a chieftain. I've never run a totem build in general, let alone a chieftain. And then they reduced your AoE while you have a totem, but they put this on this node. So they just moved this from this node to that node. Which, yeah, it's not that big of a deal to move that. So Necro, my understanding, I haven't read this one. My understanding is they have nerfed Necro. Well, they haven't nerfed it. They basically made some of the other Necro builds compete better with like skeletons and stuff like that, because some of them were like broken. So, Essence Glutton, they removed the 20% increased maximum mana. That's pretty significant because you're probably going Mind Over Matter with this because you don't need your mana, right? So this is pretty significant. Nerf. Corpse Pack, they removed the 30% increased damage if you have consumed a corpse recently. I mean, 30% increased isn't that big of a deal, but it is a nerf. Mistress Sacrifice, 40% increased skill effect duration. So they reduced the increased minion duration, but they increased the skill effect duration. So I don't know. I've never played a minion build, so I don't know how significant this is of either a buff or a nerf. And then they basically reduced all the minion damage small nodes by 5%. So overall, I don't think this in general, this ascendancy thing is significant. It is a little bit of a nerf, but I don't think it's like super significant. And Occultist, they did do some changes on this, so now they have 15% more chaos damage instead of 20% chaos damage over time multiplier. It's a nerf, but it makes it more. It's a nerf, but not a nerf at the same time. It makes it more versatile. So you can use this for more builds now instead of having to be chaos damage over time multiplier. Say you did chaos damage hits instead of damage over time, you can now use this. Malediction, they removed when you kill an enemy for each curse on the enemy, gain 8% of non-chaos damage extra damage. That's a pretty significant nerf. I mean, 8% of non-chaos damage, that's an 8% more damage that they just removed. And that's for each curse on that enemy. So if you're running like Bane and say you have like 6 curses on an enemy, that's now what? 48% more damage that you just lose. So that's pretty significant nerf. Profane Bloom. Cursed enemies now have 40% chance to explode. So this is pretty big. It makes it more consistent. Vile Bastion, regen 2% of energy shield per second for each enemy instead of 1%. So this is just basically making it so you get that 10% faster. It makes it so that you don't have to like the beginning of a fight is a little bit more survivable. So I guess technically it's a buff, but it's not. I don't think it's that significant. Again, Frigid Wake, 15% more cold damage instead of 20% cold damage over time multiplier. This makes it more consistent or more versatile, not more consistent. They buffed Forbidden Power, so you have an extra 1% increased area of effect per power charge, and then it's 6% increased damage instead of spell damage. So again, making it able to be used for other things. You can use it for your cold dots. You can use it for other things if you want to. And then the small nodes, power charge duration, and then increased chaos damage instead of multiplier. I don't know how this converts over, and my guess is that this 5% over time multiplier is significantly better than the increased, but that's if you're running cold dot. That's if you're running dots, right? And if you're not running dots, then this is a lot better. Elementalist had a bunch of big changes, so they added these three. So they basically took out. So the old one here is they took out Pendulum of Destruction and Mastermind of Discord, and so they moved Mastermind of Discord here. They took out Shaper of Desolation. And they took out Pendulum of Destruction, and Beacon of Ruin. And they added a few other things. So now, instead of having Shaper of Desolation, which gives you all the confluxes over certain period of times. So sometimes you'll have all three of the influxes, sometimes you'll only have one, sometimes and they'll be constantly switching, basically making your damage, each conflux means all damage causes that element, right? So if you have chilling conflux, then your damage chills. If you have shocking, then your damage shocks, stuff like that. Now, with all three of these, you can pick and choose which conflicts you want, and it's basically you always have that. And you can have two or you can have all three of them at all times, right? So your Shaper of Storms, your hits always shock. All damage with hits can shock. Shocks from your hits always increase damage taken by at least 15% and 25% more effective lightning elements you inflict with hits if the highest damage type is lightning. So if you're doing lightning damage, you get more effective lightning ailments. So instead of 15%, that 25% more would then become what? Something like 2.5. It's probably like 7.75 or 6.75, 3.75 more. So it'd be 18.75% shock, which means you're basically doing that much more damage. So that's pretty significant. Shaper of Winter. Yeah, Shaper of Winter. All damage from hits can chill. Chills from your hits always reduce action speed by at least 50%. 50% more effective cold elements you inflict with hits for the highest damage type is cold. Your chills can reduce action speed by up to a maximum of 40%. That's crazy. If you can get 40% action speed reduction on chills, that's a lot of action speed reduction. I wonder how that stacks with temporal chains. I know there's... So this is 29% less. Other effects on cursed enemies expire 40% slower. I know there's a maximum set to where how much slow you can do. The expiration, the slow effect temp chains is capped at 75%. That's a lot, but I don't know if it stacks on top of chill. My guess is that it doesn't. I don't remember. I know there's a bunch of different shit with that. And then Shaper Flames, your hits always ignite. All damage hits with hits can ignite. 25% more damage with ignites you inflict with hits for which the highest damage is damage type is fire. And then the small nodes that they changed increased LA damage. They added small nodes. It's the small nodes they added. Fire damage over time multiplier, increased LA damage, increased effective lightning elements, increased effective cold elements. They removed Shaper of Desolation, Beacon of Ruins, elemental damage status, element chance, and a couple small nodes. Elemancer, they changed. So summoned golems are immune to elemental damage instead of they removed it 20% increased golem damage per summoned golem. So I believe they just moved this from somewhere. Yeah. They moved it from Legion Primordial to Elemancer, basically making you have to invest more to get the immunity. Instead of just getting the early node for immunity, you have to invest more for the immunity. Bastion of Elements. They added triggers level 20 Primal Aegis. When allocated, Primal Aegis can take 100 damage per allocated notable passive skill, and other Aegis skills are disabled. So this adds a defensive layer, but they removed your elemental damage leech's life, and they removed the for each element you've been hit with by damage with recently 40% increased damage, and they removed the reduced damage taken. Because I don't know how. So I know they changed. So, yes. Other AOCs, they changed some things. Wait. So other AOCs cannot take reflected damage. The small passive prayer, yeah, whatever. So AES effects such as elemental AES from Magnet Eclipses no longer have the recharge timer interrupted by damage if the buff is depleted. So that's pretty big. They did change it a little bit, but I don't know how the AES skills work because I've never used them. So I don't know if this is a good replacement for this, except for the fact that this is going to be more consistent. The Aegis is going to be more consistent than the reduced damage taken if you've been hit by that element. So you get this whereas this you have to be hit by the element and then you get reduction of the element. So I think this is going to be more consistent, but not having the life leech is going to be pretty significant too. I don't think the damage matters. Like spell bills do so much damage as it is. Anyways, the 40% increase I don't think is gonna be that significant. Leads to Primordial, 25% increased damage per summon golem. Summon golems. So they basically changed this to Leads of Primordial and they buffed it by 5%. And then summon golems are resummoned 4 seconds after being killed. This is massive because this allows option 2 that if you don't want to summon your golems, you just get this and they'll resummon automatically. And like, because summoning, I'm sure everybody knows summoning golems over and over and over again is a pain in the ass, and that's why people will often put it on a cast when damage taken. Because this sucks, or having to resummon them sucks all the time. And then they moved this somewhere else. It looks like they removed, so you actually get less increased damage per summon golem overall. Okay. And then Heart of Destruction was Pendulum of Destruction. They added you gain Convergent when you hit a unique enemy no more than once every 8 seconds. 60% increased area effect while you don't have Convergence. So, and they removed the increased area effect for 5 seconds. Gain increase. Yeah, they removed that. So let me see here. Convergent grants 30% more elemental damage and lasts 4 seconds. So I think this makes it so you gain Convergent when you hit a unique enemy, which is fine because you didn't need the extra 75% increased elemental damage while mapping anyways. Generally speaking, you're killing everything so fast that it doesn't even matter. Man, didn't even fall. And then the AoE I don't think is generally significant. Most people I don't think care about that, but you have 60% increased AoE anyways while you don't have Convergence, so like you're going to consistently have increased AoE while mapping, which makes your clear speed better actually. And then when you get to the boss, every other 4 seconds you have 30% more damage, and that 30% more damage is actually huge, so that's pretty significant. And then Mastermind of Discord, they removed all the herald stuff, so now you're not you're not herald stacking anymore. Instead, you get exposure you inflict applies an extra minus 25% to effect resistance, and then regenerate 1% of mana per second if you've inflicted exposure recently. So you get mana regen, which is good. Mana regen's always good to have as a spellcaster. And you get exposure you inflict applies. The exposure thing is massive actually, because you can use Wave of Conviction and you put 25% exposure on lightning. Now you get an extra minus 25%. So now it's 50 minus 50% exposure. So this is massive. I think this makes it more consistent, and it makes you actually have to build around it instead of, hey, I'm just gonna get a herald and now I get this penetration. So, and this makes it so people aren't just stacking 12 heralds, and because I know with the like there was a build in Delirium where they just stacked a bunch of heralds and stuff like that, and they just rolled through the game. It just did insane amounts of damage. But streams. So, I think overall this is a huge buff to Elementalist. And I think Elementalist is going to be a big thing. I'll definitely be playing an Elementalist this league. I don't want to league start it, but I think Elementalist is going to be a lot better than what it was before. Especially when they nerfed um when they nerfed Beacon of Ruin, and like you're and stuff like that. Like when they nerfed all this stuff a long time ago, they basically killed Elementalists. I think this brings Elementalists back, 100%. Deadeye has a bunch of other changes too. So, starting with Occupying Forest, Mirage Archers are not attached to you. I don't know exactly what that means. I didn't know Mirage Archers were considered attached to you, so I'm not sure exactly what that is. Plus 2 to the maximum number of summon Mirage Archers. So my guess is that the Mirage Archers would move with you, but I'm not sure. Cannot summon Mirage Archers while near your Mirage Archers. So this, I think that some people are going to be able to find something good with this but it depends on what's considered while near your Mirage Archers, right? So there's potential, I think, to come up with something really cool with this, depending on how the mechanic works. Wind Ward, 3% less damage taken per Gale Force. Lose all Gale Force when hit. So, Gale Force, it doesn't tell me what Gale Force is. Oh, each instance of Gale Force lasts 4 seconds, maximum of 10 Gale Force. I don't think Gale Force itself does anything. It's just that you have effects. So, like 15% increased effective tailwind on you per Gale Force. And then you can get this 3% less damage. So there's no actual inherent effect of Gale Force, it looks like. It's just that Gale Force buffs other things. So it buffs your tailwind. Projectile damage. These are just small nodes that they added. So they removed projectiles pierce 3 additional targets. Projectiles have a 100% increased critical strike chance against targets they pierce. And projectiles pierce all nearby targets. I think them removing this is pretty significant because now this makes you, instead of being able to get this node as a Deadeye, this pretty much makes you have to go down here and get these pierce nodes. Because if you're not piercing, most bow builds feel so bad if you're not piercing. Like, they feel absolutely terrible. Damn, he didn't even follow. That's sad. Focal point. They added 75% increased effect to your marks. That's huge. 25% less damage taken from other enemies near your marked enemy. And marks you inflict are not removed from dying enemies. This is massive. But they talked about too in the Bay class of if this can be applied to dead enemies or not, because the corpse isn't actually removed, right? So if this can be applied to dead enemies, this is even more massive. But you can, on the flip side of this, what you can do is you can get the Writhing Jar, the Worm Flask, right? You can summon the worms, cast your mark on the worms, and then the mark stays on the worms, and you do this in a boss fight. So you're taking 25% less damage from the boss just by applying it to the worms, which is kind of insane. Not gonna lie. They remove 10% increased attack speed, increased projectile damage, blink arrow mirror. Yeah, they basically just re-changed this node completely. Your marks are pretty strong anyways. So sniper's mark is one of the better, is I think the best one. But there are other marks. So I mean, you get increased damage from projectiles hit. They enemies take 35% increased damage from projectile hits. So that's actually a 35% more multiplier, not because they're taking that extra damage, right? So it applies after all your other stuff. Projectiles which hit cursed enemies split towards 3 to 4 enemies. So yeah. And then you gain a mana flash charge when you hit cursed enemy, no more. Then no more than once every 0.5 seconds. You gain a life flash, yeah. So you gain flash charges and stuff like that. There's Assassin's Mark. Assassin's Mark, you get increased crit multi, increased crit strike chance, life when killed, mana when killed, stuff like that. I think the Sniper's Mark is generally the best one that people use. So they just reworked this. Them removing this doesn't bother me. They completely reworked this. So you're dealing a lot more damage because it's 75% increased effect too of that Sniper's Mark, which is huge. Gathering Winds, gain 1 Gale Force. So they basically reworked this as well. Gain 1 Gale Force when you use a skill. 15% increased effect of your Tailwind on you per Gale Force. And you and nearby allies have Tailwind. So that's pretty significant. Because before, I believe, like, you only had Tailwind when you used a skill or something like that. Now you just have Tailwind. Tailwind increases action speed by 8%. And you can have a maximum of 10 Gale Force. So you can have 150% increased effective Tailwind on you per Gale Force. So now you're increasing your action speed by what? 16, 20%? That's 20% more attack speed. That's 20% more cast speed. That's 20% more movement speed, I believe. Well, increase, not more, but yeah. So that one's pretty significant. That's massive. Endless munitions. Skills fire 2 additional projectiles. They removed the plus 200 to accuracy rating. 50% increase area of effect, and skills fire an additional projectile. So they added an extra projectile but reduced AoE. I think this is fine. This pretty much balances it out and makes it more consistent for other builds, right? So instead of builds like, say you're doing Split Arrow, Split Arrow doesn't use AoE. It uses extra projectiles. So it effectively makes it better, in my opinion. And then reducing accuracy, or removing accuracy, that doesn't matter. It's so easy to get accuracy anyways. Doesn't matter. Rupturing, previously Rupture. Critical strikes which inflict bleeding also inflict Rupture. What is Rupture? Ruptured targets take 25% more damage from bleeding, and bleeding on them expires 25% more quickly for 3 seconds. Up to 3 ruptures can affect a target. So this is pretty significant. You can have up to 3 ruptures. So that's 75% more damage from bleeding. I mean, most, like, they don't even use, like, Bleeding is just not a build. Like, it's a build, but people don't use it a lot right now. I don't think this in node in general is going to be significant, but attacks have 25% chance to cause bleeding. So they did take that out, making you have to invest elsewhere to get that. Increased crit multiplier against bleeding enemies. Moving while bleeding doesn't cause you to take extra damage. Okay. And gain plus 30 life when you hit a bleeding enemy. So, in my opinion, they actually nerfed this node. They made it so that whereas before you could pick up this node and you could potentially bleed enemies, or you could build around where you do make enemies bleed, and then you get all these buffs, right? You get plus 30 life on hit, you get moving while bleeding doesn't cause you to take extra damage, all this stuff. So in my opinion, this is an actual buff. Or nerf, I mean. This is overall a nerf to this node. And then we go into Far Shot. Projectile barrages have no spread. And they removed increased projectile speed. They also changed Far Shot. We'll get into that a little later. The projectile barrages have no spread is massive change. Massive. That means that it can be more consistent for boss damage. It can be like, this is pretty big. Not having spread is pretty big. Ricochet projectiles have 30% chance to be able to chain when colliding with terrain. That's big. But they removed projectiles deal 10% more damage for each remaining chain. Personally, I would have rather have the projectiles deal 10% more damage for each remaining chain rather than they can chain with colliding with terrain. I feel like the colliding with terrain, I just feel like isn't useful. Like, it's not significant, I should say. Um, 1 second. All right. And moving on, we got the Raider. This is one of the ones I'm really excited for. This one I'm super excited for. So, I think this is going to be my league start. And we'll see why. So, Rapid Assault, 50% increased onslaught effect, and you always have onslaught. They removed 20% increased attack damage, 5% chance to evade attack hits, 10% chance to gain onslaught for 10 seconds when you hit a rare or unique enemy, and gain onslaught for 10 seconds on kill. So, this makes you having onslaught consistent. It buffs the effects of onslaught, which actually we can see here probably. Onslaught grants 20% increased attack and cast and movement speed. So if you get 50% increased effect of it, it now grants 30% increased attack, cast, and movement speed, right? So that's pretty significant. Why am I getting all these notifications? Stupid Discord. But yeah, They removed your chance to evade attack hits. We'll see in a second why that's not a big deal. Increased attack damage. Well, you're getting onslaught all the time, so you have increased attack speed and damage and movement speed. So you don't like. I don't think this is that significant. And then this is all irrelevant because they made it so you just have onslaught. Avatar of the chase. 35% chance more chance to evade melee attacks during onslaught. 35% more chance to evade projectile attacks during onslaught. They removed increased attack damage during onslaught. 30% more chance to evade melee. So they buffed the evade chance. And they increased attack damage. Or they removed the increased attack damage. But this I think is pretty significant. This is pretty big for, and you have 100% increase effective onslaught anyways on this node, so I think that's pretty significant. I think that 5% more chance to evade is pretty big actually. So having the reduced damage because you always have onslaught also, this doesn't matter. I don't think it's significant. Avatar of the Slaughter. They buffed this node completely. They 100% buffed this node. You have more increased evasion rating per frenzy charge, more movement speed per frenzy charge, more increased attack speed per frenzy charge, more increased attack damage per frenzy charge as well. This is pretty big. They just straight up buffed this node. That's big. Way of the Poacher. They removed the increased attack speed. I mean, if you like, you have options here to where you can get more attack speed anyways, like all the time. So I don't think this is significant. Plus, you get extra attack speed anyways. Whatever. Quartz Infusion. This is a big reason of why I want to do this as my league start. I think this is going to be really good defensively. So they added 15% chance to dodge attack hits, which whatever, they buffed that by 5%, but they added 15% chance to dodge spell hits. And then you always have phasing. So you just walk through your enemies all the time, and you get 15% chance to dodge spell hits. That means if you get acro and phase acro, which is pretty typical, you're now at 55% chance to dodge attack hits, and you're at 45% chance to dodge spell hits. And if you're running Val Haste, or if you run a Series Step, or or you run the Quartz Flask, so Quartz Flask PoE. Yes, you already have phasing, so that part's irrelevant, but you get an extra 10% on top of that, so now you have 55% chance to dodge spell hits, and 65% chance to dodge attack hits. That's huge. That's a lot of dodge, and you have a bunch of evasion. So if you can find a way, we'll get to this. We'll get to it in a second. Actually, they removed the increased elemental damage. Whatever. Again, they're making some of these things more consistent for you. They're making it more consistent on other things. This is whatever. And then you have phasing while at max frenzy charges. You have phasing during onslaught and gain phasing. This is irrelevant because you just always have phasing. And they buffed this. Avatar of the Veil. Nearby enemies have fire, cold, and lightning exposure while you have phasing, applying minus 20% of those resistances. So instead of having 40% increased LA damage, right, now they just have minus 20% to those fire, cold, and lightning anyways. And then nearby enemies have 20% less accuracy rating while you have phasing. So they're buffing your defenses by so much on Raider. Your defenses are insanely buffed on Raider right now by this. They removed increased movement speed, whatever. They did that across the board. They changed this. Okay, so they moved this over to here and buffed it by 5%. I see what they did. And then they buffed this node by 5%. But that minus 5% to those res, I think makes up for this 40%. And then they buffed this by 5%. So, like, This is big in my opinion. And then, so typically people will go Raider, right? And they'll want this node because they want the guaranteed frenzy charges, right? But with Redeemer, the chest piece that you can get that gives you a chance to get frenzy charges on hit. So if you're just attacking fast, you're probably going to get frenzy charges anyways. So in my opinion, if you can avoid getting this, you avoid this. And then you go here, you grab these. You're immune to elemental ailments while phasing. You're always phasing. You have exposure. They have less accuracy. You have more chance to dodge, and then you go over here and you grab onslaught. So you're attacking faster, you're moving faster, you're casting faster, and then you go up here and you get more chance to evade. So you always have onslaught. So you're getting increased onslaught effect. You get a shit ton of onslaught effect. You're getting more chance to evade melee attacks. You're getting a bunch more evasion and dodge. I think Raider is going to be really fucking strong this league, defensively especially, and it's going to allow you to invest more into offenses. I think this is going to be a really strong ascendancy. So Pathfinder, I haven't played a Pathfinder in so long. I've played a couple Pathfinders, but that was back before I was decent at the game. That was when I was really bad at the game. So Master Toxicist. Poisons you inflict during any flask effect have 30% chance to deal 100% more damage. That's pretty significant. When you kill a poison enemy during any flask effect, nearby enemies are poisoned. So poison. What's the skill called? Oh no, poison. I can't think of what it's called. Shoot. I can't think of what it's called. But whatever, I guess. They removed game 10% of physical damage is actually chaos damage. 10% of physical damage converted as chaos damage. 10% more chaos damage with attack skills. You lose virulence for 50% Sawyer, and then poisons you inflict have. So this, in general, got nerfed. This node in general, it looks like got nerfed big time. Like you're losing fizz damage converted to chaos. You're losing gain 10% fizz damage is actually chaos damage, which is a 10% more multiplier. You're just losing that. You're losing 10% chance to deal 100% more damage. You lose the vigilance is 50%. You don't. Yeah, this is just completely a nerf. This whole node is a nerf. Other than now you get to spread poison, but that's not even relevant because in this game you kill mobs so fast anyways that you don't need this. You really don't. It's a little bit of extra clear speed, but I don't think it's significant. Veteran Boyer. Gain 15% of physical damage is extra damage of a random element. So they buffed this by 5%. That's pretty good. Nature's Reprisal. 40% of physical damage converted to chaos damage. 50% more chaos damage with attack skills. And chaos skills have 30% increased AoE. So now instead of 30% increased chaos damage, you have 15% more chaos damage with attack skills. So this might be a buff. I don't know for sure. Chaos skills have 50% increased AoE. Whatever. The only thing that really applies to is Caustic Arrow. Whatever. When you kill a poison enemy. Oh, so they just moved this to here. So this so far is completely this just completely got nerfed. Whatever. Recover 6% of life when you use a flask. Instead of 3% increased life recovery of flask. This is a big buff, actually. This means you get life recovery no matter what flask you use. And if you have 6 flasks, you're getting 36% life recovered, like, instantly. Is it 5 flasks or 6 flasks? I want to say it's 5. So 30%, like, instantly, instead of increased life recovery. This makes it so you don't have to use life flasks if you don't want to. And generally speaking, you're gonna have at least 2 charges, so you can get 60% life recovery immediately. Inquisitor got some big changes. So just before we go into it, Fanaticism grants spells you cast yourself 75% more cast speed, 75% reduced mana cost, and 75% increased AoE. That's a pretty big fucking node. Also, Battle Mage, gain added spell damage equal to the damage of your main hand weapon. This is hella significant. Oh god. So, Instruments of Zeal, they added these. They added these two nodes here. Gain Fanaticism for 4 seconds on reaching max Fanatic charges. So for 4 seconds, and then gain 1 Fanatic charge every second if you've attacked in the past second. And then lose all Fanatic charges on reaching maximum Fanatic charges. So basically, and then +4 to maximum Fanatic charges. So my understanding is that your maximum Fanatic charges are 4. Like, that's basically what it is. So every 4 seconds, 4 seconds. Oh wait, no, that's insane. So you gain Fanaticism for 4 seconds on reaching max Fanatic charges, and then you lose all Fanatic charges on reaching maximum charges. So these go hand in hand. So, and then you gain 1 Fanatic charge every second you've attacked in the past second. So, like, after that first 4 seconds, so you spend that first 4 seconds on the map, you stack up Fanaticism, and then you should have it for the entire map, which means you get 75% more cast speed, 75% reduced mana cost, and 75% increased AoE. That's actually insane. That's insane. And you pretty much have that the entire time. And then increased ally damage, attack speed is just a small node. Nobody cares. Instruments of Virtue. 10% more attack damage for each non-instant spell you've cast in the past 8 seconds, up to a maximum of 30%. So non-instant, if you're flame dashing, you get more attack damage, basically. If you use Orb of Storms or Frost Orb or any of that stuff, you get more damage. Okay, and then it gives you Battle Mage. Battle Mage, like we talked about, gain added spell damage equal to the damage of your main hand weapon. Well, let's say you use a staff. Let's say you use an Eclipse Staff or something like that. Global is 100% increased critical strike. It's an 100% increased global critical strike chance. And then you use Battle Mage. Well, let's say you get a tier 1 Fizz damage roll. And I've already done this. So, items. So, it's Eclipse Staff right here. Let's say you get this. You get tier 1 Fizz damage roll. And you get a tier 1 flat Fizz damage roll. You have 338 to 667 Fizz damage is added to your spells. That's better than any roll you can ever get of spells. Just flat added to your spells. That's insane. And then if you want to do it this way. So I want to do this build too, by the way. I want to try a build like this. And then you go over here. Okay. You get Divine Wrath. Gain 5% of Fizz damage is extra lightning damage. Holy shit. And then it converts. Well, lightning spells have 25% of Fizz damage converted to lightning. So depending if you're using lightning or you can do Divine Fury, or you can do both, which is gain 5% of fizz damage as extra fire damage. And now you have more, like you can convert that damage to fire damage. This is insane. This is actually insane. Like, you gain that 5%, and then you get Divine Judgment, naturally, because you're already here. You might as well get this. Like, this makes these nodes completely worth it. Because typically, if you're going to Templar, you're not going a Fizz spell. Generally, if you're going a Fizz spell, you're going to go Assassin or something like that. Whereas Templar, you're going to go Elemental. And now these are like super OP because that's 10% more damage, and then you get increased on top of it. You get a 50% increased node for basically free. It costs you 3 nodes, but whatever. Damage penetrates 2% LA Riz, massive. Like, this is absolutely insane. And if you have a Shaper weapon, you can take and use those fizz, like, yeah. It's absolutely bonkers how insane this is, in my opinion. Now, I haven't tested it, so I don't know for sure, but I think this is going to be insane. They removed, included, like, all this stuff, but I don't think this matters. Like this cast speed stuff, okay, well, just go Fanaticism. They basically just made it so you get way more cast speed there. Yeah, sure, you lose the attack speed and the attack damage. Well, you lose 50% increased attack damage, but through this node, you gain 10% more attack damage. So it probably evens out. And then you lose out on the 30% increased spell damage, but because you're getting the more cast speed and the reduced mana and the increased AoE through Fanaticism. Like, this doesn't even matter. Them removing this, they changing this to Battle Mage is insane. And, like, you're losing this increased spell damage, but Battle Mage gives you so much flat damage. It's fucking bonkers. That's if now this is assuming that I'm thinking about this properly. Maybe this isn't how it works at all. I could be wrong, but this is how this sounds like it works. Pious Path. Consecrated ground you can create causes life regen to also recover energy shield for you and allies. So that's good. So instead of, they remove 20% increased attack and cast speed while on consecrated ground. Regen 200 energy shield per second while on so basically whatever consecrated ground allies are you, I gotta look this up. Consecrated ground PoE. So the character and their allies affected by it regenerate an additional 6% of their maximal life per second. Okay. Hits against enemies have 100% increased crit strike. Okay, so you get 6% life regen. But now, instead of just getting 200 energy shield per second, you get 6% with your life regen. So if you say you're running hybrid and you're running 5k and 5k, or 5k and 3k even, if I'm thinking about this correctly, you'll get 6% of your energy shield regen, and then you'll get 6% of your life regen. So if we'll just say for sake of making it easy, you're on 5k and 5k, you get 150 life regen and 150 energy shield regen. And 5k is honestly low if you're running energy shield. I think most people, honestly, if you're running that, you might as well just run like 10k. You can easily run 10k energy shield, honestly. And if you're running that, if you have 10k energy shield, you now have 600 energy shield regen per second instead of 200 while you're on consecrated ground. which is a lot of energy shield regen. So basically, they buffed energy shield, if I'm reading this correctly. Sanctuary. Consecrated ground you create applies 15% increased damage taken to enemies. That's pretty significant. Creates applies, so they buffed it by 5%, and then you don't get the mana regen anymore while on consecrated ground. I don't know that this is significant. Oh, my feet are so cold. I don't know that this is really that significant. Whatever. Righteous Providence, 1% increased crit strike chance per point of strength or intelligence, whichever is lower, and then you get 50 to strength and intelligence. This has the potential to be insane. The question is, if your intelligence and strength are equal, does it choose? Does it choose between them? Or, if they're equal, does it work like Wise Oak? I'm over here looking at 12 other things while doing this. But if they're equal, does it work like Wise Oak where you get all the benefits of it? You get all of them. So, I mean, you're running Templar, which is a strength int character, which means, I mean, if you take standard routes here, so, it doesn't matter, whatever. Say you're going, oh. Let's say, no, we don't want to go there. We would want to go here, here. Probably grab this, go through here, grab these. I already talked about that. Grab these. You'd go down, you'd probably grab these for the life nodes. You'd go over, grab these. Go up, you grab these. If you're on crit, you grab these. You go through here, grab these. If you can, you grab this. You can grab this. Like, just from what 69 points. This doesn't include any stats on your anything. You have 223 intelligence. So this is per point, 1% increased critical strike chance per point of strength or intelligence, whichever is lower. So I put 69 random points in here. It doesn't include any of your stats on your items. It doesn't, like, you're missing another 60 points basically, and it has 183% increased crit chance. But say these were equal and it was 200 does it work where you get 400% increased, or is it only 200? That's what I want to know. And with this, they removed 100% increased critical strike chance against enemies that are affected by no elemental elements, and then increased crit multi by affected by elements, 20% increased effective non-damaging elements. Whatever they removed. We've already shown that we can get a lot more crit chance than this, and because we can get a lot more crit chance than this, that allows us to build into crit multi more. So we can go other places to get crit multi instead of having like we wouldn't necessarily, we could actually probably avoid grabbing these nodes. We could go through here and grab this. Like, we could avoid these nodes, and we could go, like, you could avoid, you probably wouldn't avoid this node because that's 30% crit multi is pretty big. Like, I feel like this opens up a lot of opportunities. They reduced the crit multi on the nodes. That's understandable. Hierophant. Okay. Pursuit of Faith, 100% increased totem placement speed, 6% increased damage. They remove 6% increased damage per enemy killed by you or your totems recently. 10% increased attack and cast speed while you have a totem. So, they probably moved this, but I don't know how I feel about this. We'll check in a second. This one, Conviction of Power, is actually kind of insane. +4 to minimum endurance charges, +4 to minimum power charges, +1 to maximum power charges and maximum endurance charges. So now, instead of having a chance to gain all these charges, and like this has 5% reduced elemental damage taken while you have an endurance charge, and then damage penetrates. So you lose. So here's the thing, right? So you lose 5% reduced elemental damage taken, and you lose damage penetrates 5%, right? So, but endurance charges, right? Endurance charges +4 to elemental resistances per endurance charge, and 4% additional physical damage reduction per endurance charge. So you now have a guaranteed 16% LE res and a guaranteed, and then power charges, right? Power charge, really, right? You have a shoot. Does it not tell me on this? I don't care about all this. Does it really not tell me? Oh, it's right here. 40% increased critical strike chance. So you have a guaranteed 16% ally res. All res, by the way. It's not just lightning or just fire. It's all ally res. And then you have a guaranteed 160% increased critical strike chance. Plus, so like this, well, whatever. You're just basically making your charges way more consistent, your defenses, and you have 16% phys damage reduction. Pretty significant. You could run, I wonder. This is interesting. Because if this is your minimum endurance charges, I want to know if you can use discharge with this and always have charges. And then you can max cast your discharge, make it cast as fast as possible, and you'll like. This is interesting. This is interesting. Okay. Whatever. Ritual Awakening. 5% more damage per summoned totem. 50% increased totem placement speed, so they moved that up here and buffed it. 3% more damage per summoned totem. Skills that would summon a totem, summon 2 totems instead. So you still summon 1 totem, but you just use multiple totems anyways, so this doesn't matter. This, like, I don't think this is relevant. And you're getting an extra 2% more damage per summoned totem. I want to say you can have something like 4 or 5 totems, so you can have like 10% extra damage, more damage. So this increased damage per enemy killed by you or your totems recently is, I think, irrelevant. Whatever. Arcane Blessing, 50% increased effective Arcane Surge on you. Immune to elemental ailments while you have Arcane Surge. They removed that. Okay, so they increased the effective Arcane Surge. That's pretty big. And they moved the immunity over to Illuminated Devotion, which they also added increased AoE while you have Arcane Surge. So they buffed that, but they reduced the spell damage. But you're getting an extra 25% increased effective Arcane Surge, which gives you I believe a more damage multiplier. Arcane Surge Beauty. Arcane Surge grants 10 to 20% more spell damage. So if you run, so you're buffing it, right? You're whatever. You get increased effect. So this increased spell damage is irrelevant, I think. And they move the immunity over to here, and you get more AoE. I think this is fine. And then they nerfed the mana nodes. And then instead of increased spell damage, it's increased effective arcane surge. So that's pretty big. This is good. They changed the duration because you don't need the duration when you just have 4 endurance charges and 4 power charges. That's okay. Guardian. I have not read this one. I am expecting a lot of changes here. Because they don't like aura bots. And the Mana Guardian is a fucking aura bot from hell. They have said that aura bots are super OP and they want to get rid of them. So, Unwavering Crusade. Nearby allies have 20% increased attack and cast and movement speed. Nearby allies deal 30% increase. So they actually buffed this increased attack, cast, and movement speed, but it took away the damage. Time of Need. 80% reduced effective curses on you. That's pretty big. Every 4 seconds, regenerate 30% of life over 1 second. So they buffed that. And they took away the remove curses and elemental ailments. But they made it to reduce 80% reduced effective curses on you. And curses, I don't know how they work with monsters, but I know as far as we cast curses, like when we cast curses, it's weaker than it was before because you wait for Doom now. So, that's pretty decent changes. I don't think that's bad. Harmony of Purpose, 20% chance to gain a power, frenzy, or endurance charge on hits. So they buffed this. Armor and energy shield charge duration. Increase endurance, frenzy, and yeah, whatever. They just increased duration. Or reduced duration, actually. And then Ascendant. Here's the changes to Ascendant. So Trickster, they added 20% chance to gain a frenzy charge and power charge on kill. 70% chance increased recovery rate of life, mana, and energy shield if you've killed an enemy affected by your damage over time recently. Okay. 20% chance to gain 50% of non-chaos damage with hits as extra chaos damage. So they buffed the frenzy charge thing. They buffed the regen thing for Ascendant. They buffed this, but they took away the regenerate 15 mana per second if you use a movement skill. So this is whatever changes. Elementalist. Exposure you inflict. They added the exposure thing instead of the damage penetration thing. And then they took away the increased herald buffs on you. Honestly, I think this is better than this penetration, but I could be wrong. So I think this is fine. Raider, you now just have phasing, and you have 10% chance to dodge attacks instead of increased damage. So this is good. This is really good for Ascendant to have this. You just have phasing now. That's really good. Pathfinder, recover 4% of life, so instead of damage penetration. I don't like this one. This is a straight up nerf. The damage penetration is pretty big. Guardian, every 4 seconds, regenerate 20% of life over 1 second. So instead of 4 seconds, it's 5 seconds. Or instead of 5 seconds, it's 4 seconds. Deadeye, 25% increased effect of your marks. You and nearby allies have Tailwind. Okay. This actually makes this more useful. Like, normally you wouldn't even care about Deadeye. Because Radar gives you frenzy charges. Yeah. And Deadeye, like, you'll get Tailwind. So I think that's projectile pierce. I mean, yeah, like nobody. I don't think most people that want to send it ever went Deadeye. So this increased effect on marks and gives Tailwind, gives an incentive to go Deadeye. I think this is an okay change. Moving while bleeding doesn't. Yeah, I think this is a good change. 25% chance of blind. They just buffed this. Champion, 50% chance to fortify on melee hit. Okay, instead of 10%, that's big. 100% chance to taunt on hit. 15% increased effect of non-cursed auras. So they basically just took away the impale and the increased movement speed, and they buffed your chance to get fortify and your chance to taunt. So this is actually big. This is a big change to champion for Ascendant. Ascendant got a big buff on that part. Hierophant increased effective arcane surge instead of increased spell damage. This is fine. Again, arcane surge gives you more multiplier for spell damage anyways, so this is fine. Assassin, 10% chance to gain elusive on crit instead of they took away the chance to poison. That's kind of annoying. I don't like that. Slayer, they removed the maximum recovery per life leech. Yikes. I don't know how I feel about that. Straight up nerf on Slayer Ascendant. Inquisitor, added damage the penetration. Okay. They buffed the penetration, but they reduced the crit multi against enemies that are affected by elemental ailments. So it's still it might be I don't know if it's a buff or a nerf, honestly. And they just updated this. They updated the this to 2% instead of 1%. So that's all the ascendancy changes. Now we get into the patch notes. All right. So Echoes of the Atlas. The sealing of the Elder has sent shockwaves far beyond the Atlas. Unknown and unseen entities now move towards the Atlas, lured by the sudden absence of one of their own. Heralded by the envoy, an entity known as the Maven is the first to arrive. Her desires are clear: to witness the exquisite struggle for survival between mortal entities. Those brave and resilient enough to withstand her brutal trials are to be rewarded with unequaled control of the Atlas. New Atlas passive skill trees provide the capacity for exiles to pursue, control, and customize the game content they most enjoy on a per region basis, so long as they prove their worth to the Maven. Ritual Challenge League, a great opportunity for whatever. Oh, the same thing it always says. In Ritual Challenge League, ritual altars have appeared throughout the world. By slaying the monster that guard the ritual altars, then activating them, you will call more monsters into the ritual circle that surrounds it. Slaying those monsters award you tribute, which can be spent on rewards for altar. You can buy ritual splinters from completed rituals. Yeah, this is all just explaining ritual. There's trailers and everything for it. We're not going to go to detail on this. I'm not too worried about this. Major new content and features. Added a new intelligence skill, Hydrosphere. Creates a sphere of water or moves an existing sphere and resets its duration. The sphere continually applies a drenched debuff that with a short duration to enemies in its area or those it moves through. You can hit the sphere with other skills to inflict cold and lightning elements other than chill. The sphere pulses at regular intervals while affected by an element, and after moving, damaging all drenched enemies in a large area with that element. So, I'm really interested in this skill just for the fact that it's completely new and interesting, right? It's a new way to do things. It's kind of like brands, except for it's not attached to enemies. It probably has a fairly decent AoE. What I want to know is the damage that it does and how often it pulses, because I want to know if this is going to be a utility skill or if this can be used as a main skill. If this can be used as a main skill, I really want to try it out. Added a new dex support gem, Trinity support skills that hit enemies. Support skills that hit enemies, causing them to gain bonuses while you have resonance of all three elements and grant resonance of elements other than the highest damage element in a hit. Supported skills deal more elemental damage and penetrate elemental resistances based on the lowest of your three resonances. So the question is, Like it sounds like the skill grants the gaining resonance. The question is, uh, how do you get equal resonances? What constitutes having resonance and stuff like that? This can be really strong if you can get equal resonances, or if you only, because it's based on the lowest of your three resonances. So it probably, to get the most effect out of it, you have to get equal resonances. But we'll see about that. Oh, that was weird. For some reason, it said it was connecting to chat. All right. Add 13 unique items as standard. Add 15 new div cards. Add 11 new maps. The new maps are going to be cool. I haven't, the tile sets from the video looked really cool. I'm actually excited for that. Add a new heist to the core game. Add harvest to the core game. Cool. Minor new content and features. Texture streaming has been reworked. Many textures that were not previously streamed now are, and the image quality of stream textures has been improved. This also addresses some hiccups around the first time certain events occurred within a session, such as slaying some monsters. This change will be monitored and improved in the future. Cool. That's good. Uh, Updating some texture stuff. That's cool. Kinetic Blast and Stormcall have brand new effects. I haven't seen those yet. Firestorm has a new skill bar icon. Pets now have a very slight delay before they will follow you when you move. I mean, I guess it reduces visual clutter by doing that, so I guess that's okay. Opening the portals to Temple of Atsuatl or to a Syndicate safe house in your hideout after you acquired a map device now creates those portals at your map device. Yes, this is fantastic, because the biggest issue, the most annoying thing that I've ever had in this game is the fact that you get these portals either around Jun or around the incursion lady. I don't remember what her name is, but uh and you either have to go in and out of each of those individually, or you have to wait for the zone to basically be timed out, and then you can click the portal and it'll be like, yeah, you can't go into the zone. It's whatever. But now, because it creates those portals at your map device, you just put it in a map and now it resets the portals. This is the most. This is not minor in my opinion. This is fantastic. This is way more than minor. This quality of life thing is huge. Continue to incremental improve the sound, art, and effects of environments. Okay, whatever. Heist changes. Karai, as well as your first rogue markers, can now be found starting at Act 6. Okay. Smuggler's caches now always drop a quest contract if possible, in addition to an ordinary contract. Okay, that's cool. Smuggler's caches now appear less frequently, and contracts, blueprints, and rogue markers now drop less frequently. That's naturally, yeah, obviously. That's always a thing. Every time a league goes core, you always reduce the drop rates, because you don't want it to be as prevalent as the current league, right? So that's fine. All quest contracts now reward you with rogue markers upon completion. Okay, that's cool. I like that. Before, it was annoying because you spend the markers to get in there and then you don't get an item at the end. You just get the quest item and it's like, whatever. You're just doing it because you have to, because you can't get it out of your inventory any other way, or you go drop it in a map. Plus, I believe that's how you get unique contracts, so that's good. Kurai's second and third quest contracts now spawn more monsters during the escape. The number of rogue markers you get from completing contracts above level 6 has been increased. You'll now get, on average, 20% more markers from level 83 contracts. Okay, this is good because they're reducing the amount of contracts you can get, so increasing the markers. This is good. I like this. The levels at which heist equipment drops has been adjusted to fit the new progression. Okay. Job experience granted to heist participants has been increased across the board to fit the lower frequency at which you players will engage with them. That's good. Blueprints that have been created through duplication, such as via Einhar's Blood Armor, must now be revealed again. Okay, that it makes sense because what people were doing before was they were copying this really OP one, and they never had to invest into it. They just put their rogue exiles in, and then it was like 1,000 rogue markers, whatever. Now this makes sense. This is a good change. The rogue harbor once again acts like a town and will be populated by other players. I fucking hate that. That pisses me off. Vendiri's chance for items from heist chests to be doubled has been reduced at all levels. It is now 14% at job level 5. Okay, that's good. Vendiri was OP. Huck now grants increased experience to players in heists. Okay, so Huck is useful now. That's good. Huck is actually useful now. Harvest rewards can no longer appear in heists because harvest is a thing again. Yep. Greatly increase the chance of finding tempering and tailoring orbs from blueprint rewards. I don't remember. I don't know exactly what those do. I've never found one. The experience limit on all heists has been lowered, as in you will hit a point at which additional monster spawns should grant no XP. Okay, no XP sooner. Volcano's reveal auto no longer overlaps with itself. Whatever. Heist changes, all good. My opinion, these are great. Other than this fucking town one, I don't see the point in doing this. Just give us a guy that does it in our hideout. We go to a separate area. I think that this rogue harbor thing, whatever. I think that's stupid. Harvest has been added to the core game and has been vastly reworked. It no longer contains a garden building component nor a permanent garden of your own. Instead, you now have a chance to discover a portal to an established sacred grove in maps, which contains several different harvestable plots. Yep, this is fantastic. Makes it so you don't have to maintain a garden every league and stuff like that. This is good. Each plot is presented as a pair of options. Harvesting one plot destroys the other, so choose carefully. Like previously, harvesting will cause monsters to emerge, and upon defeating the monsters, you'll be able to craft your items. Okay, this is good, because this makes you have to choose instead of just being like, hey, now we get all of these, or now we get all of these. So this is good. Once you've completed your first harvest, you'll be given a hoarder crafting station, which can store up to 10 crafting options. You'll be able to place a copy of the hoarder crafting station in your hideout, meaning you don't have to do all your crafting in the sacred grove. This is good because now instead of having infinite crafting that you can, or hoarder crafting stations, you can now only have one. You only get 10 crafts. That's good. On various occasions, you'll be able to harvest the heart of the grove and fight the avatar of the grove. That's cool. The tier 3 seed modifier that originally doubled life force from a harvest from now instead can causes crafting options to be lucky. Okay. Probably because you don't need to double life force anymore. There's no point. Character balance. AES effects such as elemental AES from Magna Eclipses no longer have the recharge timer interrupted by damage if the buff is depleted. This is good. Makes the Aegis thing for Elementalists that we talked about earlier more consistent. The cooldown for gaining a flash charge from effects which grant them on a critical strike has been reduced to 0.1 seconds from 0.2. This is good, I guess. I mean, I don't know if this was really necessary, but whatever. The far shot keyword now causes your projectiles to deal 20% less damage at very close range, previously no penalty, up to 60% more at range of 70 or greater, previously 30% more. This is huge because now you get up to 60% more, and it has a bigger range, more variance. You actually have a penalty instead of having to be farther away. I want to know how this stacks up if you have point blank and far shot. I'll have to look into that later, but this could be interesting. The Tailwind buff now grants 8% increased action speed from 10%. Naturally, because you always have Tailwind now instead of you just get it at certain points. So this is fine. Skill balance. Added a new orb gem tag. This applies to skills which have periodic effect over an area and persist for a duration but are not targetable by enemies. Orb of Storms, Void Sphere, Winter Orb, Hydrosphere, and Frostbomb. now have this tag. To avoid confusion, Magma Orb has been renamed to Rolling Magma. Okay. Whatever. I don't know how this applies. Maybe there's going to be new passive nodes or stuff like that later on that apply to orbs. Specific kit skills. This is a long one. So, anomalous anger now causes you and nearby allies to deal 0.25% increased burning damage per 1% gem quality from 1% per 1. So that's a pretty big nerf. It's honestly, it's understandable, especially since aura bots were OP as it was. And the new special gems kind of made them even more OP because you get an anomalous and now they get a bunch more burning damage. Divergent Anger now grants you and nearby allies 0.05% increased movement speed per 1% from 0.25% per 1% quality. Again, they're going to nerf. I'm pretty sure, if I had to guess, they're probably nerfing all of the the special auras. Arctic Armor no longer triggers when hit effects from reflected damage, including any when hit effects from quality. I don't know what this applies to. I read it somewhere, but I don't remember. It doesn't affect me. Whatever. Artillery Ballista now allows you to place an additional totem at gem level 11 and again at gem level 22. That's good, I guess. If you want to run an Artillery Ballista, you can have an extra one. Bear Trap. Trapped enemies now take 25% increased damage from traps and mines from 15%. Okay. So they buffed that. Whatever. 25%. That extra 10% increased damage isn't that significant, I don't think. Well, it says they now take 25, so I think that might be 10% more. That might be pretty significant. Bear Trap Blade Blast now has 35% more area of effect per Blade Vortex Blade detonated from 20%. So this is big. You have a huge AoE now, like a much more area of effect. I mean, 15% more AoE is pretty significant. If it was increased, it wouldn't be significant, but the more thing is pretty significant. Blast Rain now penetrates 20% fire res at gem level 1, up to 30% at gem level 20. So 5% increased pen. This is pretty significant buff. Nobody uses Blast Rain though, so I don't think it matters. Now has a radius of 16 at a minimum range, from 14 and a 22 at a maximum range, from 18. Now fires in a slightly wider spread. The problem is that this is basically like Blazing Salvo is actually pointless in my opinion. There's just other skills that are way better that do the same thing. Magma Orb or Rolling Magma now. Same thing. I think this is useless. Blink Arrow now gains increased cooldown recovery at the gem levels up. Wait. Now gains increased cooldown recovery rate as the gem levels up to 47%. This, I'm pretty sure, is because now Deadeye, I think it is, doesn't have the Blink Arrow thing. So I think this is a pretty significant change. It also makes it so you don't have to go Deadeye to get this buff. This is good. Charge Dash now has a minimum radius of 14 at gem level 1 from 12, up to 26 at gem level 20 from 22. Okay, whatever. Clarity. Anomalous Clarity now causes you and nearby allies to have 0.25% increased mana recovery from flasks per 1% gem quality from 0.5. Whatever. This doesn't even really matter. Most people don't use mana flasks unless they're running Mind Over Matter. This is kind of pointless in my opinion. Divergent Clarity now grants you and nearby allies 0.25% increased damage per 1%, so that they reduce the damage. That's good. That makes sense. Projectiles now deal 5% more damage for each remaining change, and now converts 20 to 60% of his damage. So this is a big buff. I don't know Cobra Lash. Cobra Lash Beauty. So has 3 to 5 times, so you can have 25% more damage. That's big. That's a big buff. That's honestly a really big buff. Cobra Lash may be really good. I think Cobra Lash was pretty good before. I think Cobra Lash might be really good. Contagion now has a base radius of 17 from 20, so they nerfed Contagion. Crackling Lance now has an added damage effectiveness of 115%. Now deals 28 to 85 lightning damage at gem level 1 from 26 to 78. And up to 317 to 952 at gem level 20. So it's a pretty significant buff, but I don't know that this is going to be significant to make Crackling Lance useful, honestly. Desecrate, Phantasmal Desecrate now has a chance to produce a different special monster corpse based on its quality. Okay. Phantasmal Desecrate now has 1% chance to spawn a Forgotten Corpse per 1% gem quality from 0.1%. Okay. That's interesting. I don't know how this applies. I've never run Desecrate. Don't really know how this applies. Determination. Anomalous Determination now grants you nearby allies 0.25% chance to avoid being stunned per 1%. I mean, I guess, but I think most people build around the chance to being stunned anyways, so whatever, I guess. Divergent Determination now grants you and nearby allies 0.1% of evasion rating as extra armor per 1% of gem quality. So this makes sense. They're nerfing how much armor you're getting. That's actually like somebody can build. Yeah. Somebody can build a high evasion and then get a shit ton of armor. So makes sense for the nerf. Anomalous Discipline now grants you and nearby allies 0.25% increased damage while on full energy shield. Down from 0.5%. That's fine. Diversion now grants you and nearby allies 0.5% increased energy shield recharge rate per 1% from 2% per 1%, and also causes you and nearby allies to have 0.5% slower start to energy shield recharge per 1%. So this is a big nerf. Divergent Discipline was kind of broken. Like, you're getting 2% increased energy shield recharge rate. Yeah, you were getting a lot of increased recharge rate. Yeah. So that's a pretty big this is a pretty big nerf, honestly. Earth Shatter spikes now have an explosion radius of 18 from 20. Now has significantly more variance on the distance at which spikes will appear from the initial slam location. That makes sense because they're trying to nerf like the bonks, so that's fine. Firestorm now grants more damage with hits and ailments on the first impact. Previously, it granted more area damage, which does not apply to ailments. Okay, this is good. They're just making it apply better. The first impact now does 250% more damage from 150% with hits and ailments. There is one of the special ones, the special gems, that I want to know if this affects that as well. Does this... Actually, yes, because it 100% does, because that's based on quality. So this is good. It's a good buff, but I don't think it's going to make it, like... Well, I played Flame Blast a little bit, and it just feels bad, in my opinion. So I don't think this is significant. I don't think this is going to make the skill used. Flame Blast no longer has increased percent chance to ignite for each stage. Now it's 50% chance to ignite at all gem levels. Just makes it more consistent to ignite, whatever. Divergent Flame Blast now grants 1% less cast speed per 1% gem quality from 2% per 1. Why would you want less cast speed? There's gotta be something I'm missing here. Flame Blast Beauty. We want Divergent. Anomalous. Oh, it gives maximum stages, that's why. So that, okay. So it gives you 2 maximum stages at level 20. So that makes sense. So this is a buff. But again, nobody's going to use Flame Blast. Doesn't matter. Now has an additional damage. Frost Bomb now has an additional damage effectiveness 300% from 200%. Now deals 14 to 21 cold damage at gem level 1. Up to 1336 to 2003 at gem level 20. That's a pretty big buff. I don't know if it really matters. I think most people just used Frostbomb as utility anyways. I don't think there's a point in buffing damage It now gains additional radius at gem levels up to +7. This is big. Getting the additional radius is pretty significant. But I don't think this matters. I don't think people use the skill for damage. Galvanic Arrow now gains radius at the gem levels up to +5 at gem levels at 20 from +2. Okay. It's just straight up buff. Again, don't think it matters. Glacial Hammer now deals base weapon damage and has an added damage effectiveness of 165%, up from 155 up to 215. So it's buffing whatever. Not gonna make it matter. That it's not gonna make Glacial Hammer be used more. It's just not. Anomalous Graze now grants you and nearby allies 0.1% chance to avoid elemental ailments, down from 0.5%. This, okay, again, they're just buffing or nerfing auras in general. Now grant you nearby allies 0.05% chance to avoid chaos damage from hits. That was kind of busted, damn. Well, Divergent Haste now grants you and nearby allies 0.2% increased projectile speed per 1% from 0.5%. Phantasmal Haste now causes buffs on you and nearby allies to expire 0.25% faster from 1%. Now causes buffs on you and allies to expire. That's weird. Whatever. Anomalous Hatred now grants you and nearby allies 0.25% increased chill and freeze duration per 1%. Gem quality from 1%. Okay. Now grants you and nearby allies 25. Oh, movement speed. I need to look into this. If I can get a Divergent Hatred, because I want to run a Reeve build, and we'll see why here in a second. Heavy Strike now deals base weapon damage and has a added damage effectiveness of 195% at gem level 1 from 176. Again, not going to make it used. Now has an added damage effectiveness of 150% from 130%. Now deals 74 to 110 chaos damage at gem level 1 from 961 to 92 up to 689 to 1034 from that. Now deals 60% more damage with hits per 5 doom on Hex with most doom from 50%. Now deals 40% more damage with ailments. So this, I don't know if this is quite enough, but Hex Blast is a really cool skill. And like the way it works is really interesting. But the problem is it didn't quite have enough damage, right? I think there was a lot of people that liked Hex Blast as a skill, but it was very underwhelming. I don't know if this is quite enough, but this is a good buff. This is a good buff that might make Hex Blast used more. Infernal Cry now causes your next 6 attacks to be exerted. Okay. Kinetic Bolt increases and reduces spell damage now also apply to attack damage from the skill at 200% of the value from 150%. Anomalous Kinetic Bolt now causes increases and reductions to cast speed to apply to attack speed at 2.5% of their value per 1% from 5%. Yep, I knew this was. Mathil created a super fast attacking build that that was kind of insane. This isn't a surprise. Lightning Strikes no longer causes projectiles to deal 25. This is a good buff. No longer causes damage over time for projectiles to deal 25. This is a pretty good buff, but again, don't think it's enough to make it used. Lightning Warp now gains additional radius at gem levels up to 4. It was a movement skill. Like, this doesn't even matter. I don't think this matters. Nobody's going to use Lightning Warp now. Flame Dash is still significantly better. Whatever. Malevolence, Anomalous Malevolence now grants you and nearby allies 0.1% increased skill effect duration per 1% gem quality from 0.5%. Increased skill effect. Okay, so that's okay. 0.25% increased damage with ailments down from 0.5%. That makes sense. Pretty reasonable nerf. Mirror Arrow now gains increased cooldown recovery. Yep, again, this is because they reduced it, or they just eliminated it on Deadeye. And this makes it so you don't have to be a Deadeye to get this. This is good. Pestilent Strike now converts 60% of physical damage to chaos from 50%. I don't know why this matters. Whatever. Plague Bear. Divergent Plague Bear no longer grants reduced chaos damage taken while incubating. Now causes the Plague Bear buff to have 0.5% to poison damage over time multiplier while infecting. That's insane. No longer grants. So it had reduced chaos damage taken. That's actually insane. Although I do wish we had more ways to reduce chaos damage. But Anomalous Plague Bear, now they spelled plague wrong here. Plage. Anomalous Plage Bear now causes you to have 0.25% increased movement speed. Okay, whatever, they've been reducing movement speed across the board anyways. Precision. Divergent Precision now grants you and nearby allies 0.1% increased damage per 1% gem quality from 0.5%. And no longer causes you and nearby allies to have less AoE. Okay. I think that's fine. Divergent Pride now causes nearby enemies to have minus 0.1% to physical damage reduction per. So, okay. Yeah, so this makes it so that Pride's not so OP. Again, they're nerfing Impale and stuff like this. Purity of Elements. Anomalous. You and nearby elements. Now grants you and nearby allies 0.1% chance to avoid elements from 0.5. Okay. I wish they'd keep the 0.5. I don't think this is like nobody's gonna be like, oh, I have to use a purity of elements now. Although with Orobots, that's why they do it. Never mind. I understand why they do it. They want to nerf Orobots. Orobots are OP. Divergent purity of elements now causes your damage and that of your nearby allies to pim. Whoa. This was that. Oh my god. That's insane. I didn't know that was a thing. I know why they nerfed this one. Wow. You could have. So every 5% would be 1%. So yeah, you could have 4% Ellie Pen. Plus, if you're an Orobot, you have significantly more from this gem. And now you get a lot less. So this is fine. This is a really good nerf. Holy shit, that was... And this is the Purity of Fire. These are basically the same thing. These are the same thing as the Purity of Elements, except for with their specific element. Ray Spectre. Ray Spectres now have a Spectre level of 28 at gem level 1. So they nerfed the Ray Spectres. You can't have a Ray Spectre of 76. Makes sense. You can't go Shaper farming and get a Ray Spectre of 76. Whatever. The Spectre Gem now grants minions 105 additional accuracy rating at level 1, up to 70. Yes, they just hard nerfed this. Spectred versions of the They Have Told Snowcloak skill no longer grants reduced damage taken and grants 15% chance to dodge attack and spells. Okay. The Knife Throw skill use Spectre versions and will therefore not be supported by supports like Spell Echo. That's insane. You could support it with Spell Echo and just throw the knives. Reeve. This one, I think this is a pretty big buff. Now deals base weapon damage and has added damage effectiveness of 150% at gem level 1 from 135. So it's up by 15%, up to 180% from 155. So it's 25% buff. So I think this is fairly significant. I think I want to try a Raider Reeve build. But we'll see on Friday when we go and try and do some theory crafting. Rolling Magma, previously Magnivore, now clarifies that projectiles can't change direction, so it's just clarifying. Okay. Scorching Ray now has a base cast time of 0.25 seconds. Okay, this is going to make it used more. Now has a mana cost of 2 at gem level 1 from 4 up to 5 at gem level 20. This isn't going to make it used more. Whatever. Scourge Arrow. Anomalous Scourge Arrow now causes each Spore Pod to fire 0.05 additional Thorn Arrows per 1% from 0.1. Okay. Searing Bod now deals 29.4 from 23.6 up to 24.59. So this is a pretty significant buff, but it's not going to be used. Searing Bond is such an ass skill anyways. Like, you create these totems that attach beams to you, and then you have to run through enemies, and it just deals damage to them. It's an ass skill. That's not going to be used. Seismic Trap now has an additional damage effectiveness of 140% from 120. Now deals 47 to 70 phys damage unchanged to the top level. I don't know if this is going to make it compete with other traps at all. I don't think this matters. Shield Charge now deals 16 to 24 base offhand physical damage at gem level 1 from... They're buffing the damage of Shield Charge. Nobody uses it for this. Nobody uses this for damage. This is pointless. This is a waste of a line of text. This is a waste of time in editing, in programming, all this stuff. This is a waste. Now has 0.2% base critical strike chance per 10 max energy shield on your shield from point. Okay, this is pretty significant because you can use a... there was a time that I used like a power charge on crit thing. I don't know if it really matters. I don't know if anybody else ever really used it for that, so I don't know if this matters or not. Now deals 3 to 4 added fizz damage per... Actually, this is actually big because you can use it... People use shield charge with spellcasters sometimes, and you can use it with Ellie Overload. This can be really good for proccing Ellie Overload. Now deals 3 to 4 added fizz damage per 15 armor or evasion rating on shield. From 2 to 3 added fizz damage. Okay, again, waste of space of a line. Nobody ever uses shield charge for damage. Nobody's going to use it for damage. It's never going to keep up with any attack skill. Even if you have even if you have 12,000 like armor and evasion rating on this, I think that's a waste. Shockwave Totem now has a targeting range of 80 from 100. This primarily affects cases where the totem can use its skill remotely, such as via astral... Okay, whatever. There's quality of life on Shockwave Totem. Don't think it matters. Extra totems on the ballistas. That's fine. Now it deals 20 to 30 base offhand physical damage at gem level 1, up to 200 at 3 to 301 from... So they buffed it a little bit. This Spectral Shield Throw, these buffs, I think is actually big. I think this is actually big. There are people like Octavian wanted buffs on Spectral Throw anyways, and I think this might actually be cool. Projectiles from Spectral Throw are now considered 50% larger against monsters when checking for collision. Okay, quality of life thing. I don't think it's going to bring it back. Static Strike now has a base duration of 3 seconds from 2. Again, nobody's going to use it because of that. Now has added damage effectiveness of 130%. Now deals 31 to 38 lightning damage. Wow. That's pretty significant, actually. Okay, whatever. Lightning damage at gem level 1 up to 510 to 947 at gem level 20. This is pretty big buff, but again, I don't think it's going to matter. I don't think anybody's going to start using Stormclaw. Summon Carrying Golem now deals approximately 20% less damage at all levels. Nerfing, okay, whatever. Now deals probably 10, they're nerfing these. Sunder, the first wave, now has a base radius of 9 from 7. Okay. Now grants 1% increased fizz damage per 1%. Previously granted 1% AoE. However, this was a bug, so it was never intended this way. Whatever. This isn't a change. They just fixed it. Okay. Now deals base weapon damage and has an added damage effectiveness of 100% at gem level 1, up to 120%. This is a pretty big buff. Tornado Shot used to be huge. This might make it this might be good. Toxic Rain now converts 60% of fizz damage to chaos damage. I don't think this matters. Unearth now has a cast time of 0.3 seconds from 0.6 and uses different casting animation. Now has a mana cost of 4 from 7 up to 10 at gem level 20. Now deals 15 to 20 fizz damage at gem level 1. Up to... So they reduced the damage. They nerfed it. Why? Nobody used Unearth as a damage. What? Now has added damage effectiveness of 90%. They hard nerfed this. That's annoying. Okay. Venom Gyre no longer deals added chaos damage. Okay, that's what? Question mark. Now deals base weapon damage and has an added damage effectiveness of 125%. So it does more damage, a lot more damage there, but it doesn't do added chaos damage. Now has a 40% chance to retain caught projectiles fired after using Whirling Blades at all gem levels. Okay. Retain. Okay. Now converts 60% of fizz damage to chaos damage. I think this is significant now because they took this out. So this is fine, I think. I'm so hungry. It's crazy. Viper Strike now converts 60% of fizz damage to chaos damage. Whatever. Nobody's going to use Viper Strike still. Divergent Vitality now grants you and nearby allies 0.2% increased damage while at full life. Down from... Okay, yep. Again, nerfing Autobots. Warlord's Mark. Cursed enemies now cause you to generate 20 rage over 1 second when they are stunned from 5 rage. Okay. So you're getting a lot more rage. This is kind of cool. Winter Orb now has a base duration of 1.6 seconds from 1.2. That's a pretty decent buff. Makes it more consistent. Anomalous Zealotry now grants you and nearby allies 0.1% crit multi versus 0.25% before. Now causes you and nearby allies to regenerate 0.005% of life per second from 0.02%. Okay. Again, they're nerfing Autobots across the board. Val scale balance. Okay, Flame Blast. Cool, they changed that. Val Reeve now deals base damage and has added damage effectiveness of 150% at gen. Okay, so it's the same as regular Reeve, which is good. Obviously they were gonna do that. That's whatever. Support gem balance. Ballista Totem support now causes supported skills to do 32% less damage at gem level 1. Up to 20% less damage. So this is a good... They're buffing Totem... Or Ballista is pretty good. So that's pretty interesting. Efficacy support now requires level 8 at gem level 1 from 31. Okay. Now requires... So you can use efficacy earlier. Now causes supported skills to deal 10% more damage over time at gem level 1 from... But they nerfed it in general. Oh no, the level 20 is no change. Okay, this makes sense. If they're lowering the level it can be used, this makes sense. Impending Doom. Doom Blast now has an added damage effectiveness of 100% from 50%. So they nerfed Impending Doom. No. They buffed it by a lot. So again, this might make Hex Blast better. This might make Hex Blast usable and decent. Because Hex Blast just like... It just didn't have that oomph. It was a good skill in my opinion, but it just didn't have the damage that it needed to be usable. So this plus the Hex Blast plus might be really good. Intensified support no longer supports skills that create minions. Okay. Again, they were nerfing minions. Lesser Poison support. Anomalous Lesser Poison now grants 1% increased poison duration per 2% gem quality. Previously granted 1% chance to gain a frenzy charge on killing blow against an enemy with 5 or more poisons. That's such a stupid line to ever have anyways. Why would that ever be a thing? Oh, whatever. Pinpoint support no longer supports skills that create minions. Okay. Passive trees. The Impaler Keystone now prevents Call of Steel removing any impales inflicted within the last 4 seconds. This is massive nerf. They did this on purpose. I mean, you can still use Call of Steel the way you were before. It's just now you have to wait 4 seconds. So it makes you play a lot slower. The Ash, Frost, and Storm, Elemental Resistance, and Anointed Flesh notables each now grant reduced effect of shock and chill on you rather than reduced effect of non-damaging elements on you. Okay, because brittle and sapped and stuff like that are elements. That's why they did this more than likely. The Swift Syrian cluster now consists of 2 branches rather than a full loop. It now has a second notable, Blade Sovereign, which causes Call of Steel to have +4 to maximum steel shards, 30% increased use speed, and deal 10% increased reflected damage. The small passive leading to Blade Sovereign grants Call of Steel 15% increased use speed and causes it to deal reflected damage with 15% increased AoE. The small passive replaces one that previously granted 5% increase more impale effect. Ascendancy reworks. We already went through all these. Not gonna go over them again. Item balance. Items that appear identified or with visible variable properties in a vendor's window as a result of a recipe now have their properties hidden until the trade is complete. You can no longer see the modifier values change as a result of different ingredients, inputs, and we'll just have to hope for the best, like real cooking. At least how I do it. Lol. I mean, this makes sense. This is how it should have been to begin with. You shouldn't be able to see how things are to begin with. The fact that you could beforehand and just change your outcomes. There's no risk. There's no risk in all the reward. So this makes sense. You can now perform the 5-for-1 recipe on items with outputs that are always corrupted, such as talismans and breach rings. Okay, that's good. Make it more consistent. That's kind of cool. That makes it so that like when you get a stack of talismans from heist, you can now potentially, and say they're all shit made, you could now have another chance to potentially get a decent one. So that's kind of cool. Maps dropped by special sources such as deterministic chests or league rewards like those found in the Azurite Mine or the Temple of Atsuel now use your own atlas to determine which maps to drop, and can therefore drop maps that have been raised above their base tier due to the presence of watchstones. Maps dropped from these sources now also take into account your favorite map selections. If a source such as this cannot find a compatible map from your atlas to drop, for example, due to too few maps being completed and too few watchstones being socketed for a tier 16 map on your atlas, it will drop a random map of the correct tier instead. Okay. If a source such as this cannot find a compatible map from your atlas to drop, it will drop a random map of the correct tier instead. Okay. That's good. I like this change. This allows it to be again, the whole favorite maps thing is really cool. I like that. The Blot Alter crafted modifiers, which reduce the effect of non-damaging elements on you, now instead grants reduced effective shock chill. Again, they're doing that because of brittle and sap and stuff like that. The Eternal Labyrinth enchantment for Venom Gyre now grants 25% chance to keep caught projectiles fired by using Whirling Blades. Existing items with this enchantment are unaffected. Okay. Due to a bug being fixed with the Blight Chest or Lucky stat from the Crimson and Teal Oil Blighted anointments that causes the stat to apply to each lane, we've adjusted the value of these anointment. Teal Oil now grants 5 Blight Chests or Lucky, and Crimson Oil now grants 10 Blight Chests or Lucky. Okay. They're just making it consistent because it was bugged to begin with. Yikes. The Blight Ring anointment that causes minions from your scout towers to have increased life now instead causes your scout towers to produce an additional minion. Existing items with this anointment are unaffected. Imprinted Eternal Orbs can no longer be applied to fractured items, overriding their fractured modifiers. Samnite helmets have been renamed Samnite helmets. Okay. But there's probably a reason for that, but whatever. Cluster Jewel balance. The Cluster Jewel notables Numbing Elixir and a Flexible Sentry both now grant reduced effect of Shock and Chill on you rather than reduced effect of non-damaging elements on you. Okay. They're just doing that for consistency. The Cluster Jewel Heraldry now applies its exposure effects in a radius of 30 units from 60. That's a pretty significant nerf. You have to be closer and more likely to take damage from it. The Cluster Jewel notable Stalwart Commander now grants 20% increased aura effect for Determination, Grace, and Discipline from 30%. Okay, yep, they're nerfing aura bots. Cluster Jewel, notable Rotten Claws, now causes minions to have 12% chance to impale on hits from 20%. Okay. Nerfing Impale, now grants your minions to have 5% chance to deal double damage while they are on full life. And down from 10, nerfing minions again. Among equals, now grants 8% increased effect of non-curse auras from your skills from 10%. Grant the small cluster jewel passive that granted the effect of non-cursed auras from your skills to grant 3% from 6%. Small cluster jewel passive skills that granted increased effective curse auras from 3% now 5%, or now 3% from 5%. Again, these are all to nerf aura bots. Unique item balance. Replica Nebula now has 15 to 20% increased cold damage from 3 to 5% per 1% missing cold res, up to a maximum of 300%, and 15 to 20% fire damage up to the same thing, fire damage. Existing items can be divined for the new values. Okay. Replica's Alberon's Warpath now grants 1 to 80 chaos damage to attacks per 80 strength. Previously per 50. This affects all versions of the item. Per 50 was pretty OP. This nerfs it pretty significantly. So this is fine. Mater of Innocent no longer grants added fire damage to spells. Instead, it now grants Battle Mage keyword, which adds main hand weapon damage to spells. This affects all versions of this item. New versions of Mater of Innocence now have 315 to 360 to 350. So they nerfed it. In general, existing items can be updated to the new values with Divine Orbs. But why on Ray class would you do that? Disintegrator is the same thing. This affects all, except for with Disintegrator, it affects all versions of the item. Wait. That's insane. Oh my god. Wait. So, I'm confused. So, I don't know. Whatever. Jack the Axe now has 130 to 150% increased fizz damage from, so they buffed Jack the Axe big time. It no longer has increased attack speed, life leech, or reduced life leech rate. It now has plus 25% to 35% to bleeding damage over time multiplier. It now has grants the thirst to blood skill. Its flavor text has been updated. Okay, I don't know if that matters. The Lord of Steel unique jewels now grant 20 to 25% increased reflected damage from Call of Steel from 40 to 50%. Existing versions can be updated to these new, much worse values with the Divine Orb and a monetary lapse in judgment. True. Summon Skeletons mages from Dead Reckoning unique jewel or Veil Summon Skeletons now deal 50% more damage and their projectile speed has been doubled. Okay, that's a buff. Leash of Oblation no longer grants 25% reduced effective offerings. This affects all versions of this item. Chimera's Avaris now triggers the Icicle Burst skill on hit rather than on kill. We really mean it this time. I swear this affects all versions of this item. Yikes. Monster changes. Some bosses now ignore damage if the source of that damage has been a very long distance from it for a period of time. Essentially, you can't just shoot them from beyond their pathfinding radius anymore. Some bosses now they basically made it so you can't off-screen bosses. That's fantastic. It makes sense. Enduring Cry used by monsters has been given a cooldown and had its healing amount standardized. It's less ridiculous now. That's fair. The fucking Oak fight is so annoying. If you don't have the damage for it, it's insanely annoying. Oh my god. Like, if you're league starting and say you only have a 2 link or something stupid, so annoying. Allison map changes. Map tiers and locations have been shuffled, though the pin locations for maps has not changed. Most maps are now initially found at a different tier. Unique maps have not moved or changed tiers. Conqueror influence maps may now experience an invasion by Sirius himself. That's huge. That's so much fun. That makes it so much fun. You can fight Sirius more often now. Xena can now offer missions involving Metamorph, Delirium, Blight, and Harvest mechanics. can now offer. Okay, that's cool. That's really cool. I like that. Holy fuck yeah. Because then you can choose a map that has metamorph. I wonder what the symbols are going to look like. Because there's got to be symbols that say that, right? Curate can now inform you if your Atlas state is preventing a conqueror from appearing, as well as how to fix it. Yes, that's fantastic for new players, especially. Curate can now also tell you which region a conqueror might be hiding in if you ask him. Hey, that's cool. Cartographer Strongbox can now rarely appear in tier 13 or higher maps. I thought it was gated at tier 11. Oh, they must have. Okay, so they must have made it. Okay, that's cool. I like that. The Hall of Grandmaster's unique map has been removed from the Atlas. He can still drop his loot. It just does not need to be completed free. That's smart. Hall of Grandmasters was just too hard for. Like, you have to have specific builds for it. That's just exactly what they should do. Zana League mods available during 3.13. Okay. So, Fortune favors the brave. Obviously, that's always on there. Warbands. Inhabit 3 additional warbands. Don't care about this unless you're looking for like specific uniques, I guess. Anarchy. Don't care about this. Rogue Exiles doesn't matter. Ambush. Don't care about. I mean, Ambush is okay, I guess. I wouldn't spend 3 chaos to put Ambush. Domination. Extra shrines means extra pack size. That's pretty good. It's 4 extra shrines too, where previously it used to be 3. Parandus is cool. I like having Parandus area. Yeah, I love having Parandus. Sometimes you can get something cool. Beyond's always a fan favorite. Everybody loves Beyond. You get extra experience. You fight more monsters. That one's always good. Legion. I love Legion. Legion is one of my favorite leagues. One of my favorite encounters. Legion is 10 out of 10. But this whole thing, I would say, is like a 6 out of 10, maybe. I would say 6 out of 10 at most. User interface improvements. The quest tracker now supports expandable sections. You'll probably see this during the new Atlas storyline. Has a lot of subquests. Yes, this is so necessary. I've been wanting this for so long. It should be expandable all the fucking time anyways. It should have always been like that. GGG so far behind on this, but that's fine. We love them anyways. Your friends list once more displays offline friends in order in which they were last online rather than alphabetically. Okay. You can now set the relative volume of custom alert sounds in an item filter. That's cool. I like that. You can now filter cluster jewels by the number of small passives they have in your item filter. Kirk no longer displays Xana's decoration level in his dialogue panel. You are now warned when changing your hideout while you have map portals open that doing so will destroy those portals. I mean, that's a pretty good thing to be notified of. Quest rewards. FAQ support is now offered to the Witch for completing the Cage Brute and can be purchased from Nesta by Templar, Shadow, and Scion. Trinity support is now offered by the Witch, Duelist, and Ranger for completing Sharp and Cruel, and can be purchased by Yena, by the Templar, Duelist, and Scion. Hydrosphere is now offered by the Witch, Templar, and Shadow for completing Breaking the Seal, and can now be purchased from Pataris and Vanja by the Scion. And then PvP changes, don't care about that. Bug fixes, I mean, honestly, I don't really care too much about the bug fixes. Hey, if it's a bug and they're fixing it, that's fantastic. Otherwise, I'm not gonna particularly go over that. So, but yeah, that's all of the patch notes, all of the ascendancy changes. On Friday, we're gonna be going and we're going to plan our build out. We're gonna plan our build out. We're gonna spend pretty much. We're gonna be streaming all day from like 10 in the morning to probably 9-10 at night at least. We're going to be streaming until I hit maps. We will get through 2 maps on the first day. That is the plan. Otherwise, yeah, that's pretty much it. It has been a shorter stream today, but I think that's where we're going to end it. This is pretty much everything that I wanted to go over for today. So, yeah. I